If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 151, Lone Wolf. When you feel like quitting, remember why you started. Unknown. In midair, a figure of red, green, and yellow suddenly appeared and landed in the middle of the grassy circle in a classic superhero pose. He stared at the Phantom Thief. "We meet again, Phantom Thief, and this time, you won't escape." Robin stood with his arms crossed and smiled at the Phantom Thief. "Robin." The Phantom Thief stared at the youthful hero before him, squinting his eyes slightly and chuckling. "I've lost count of how many times I've heard you say that. Aren't you tired of it?" Hearing this, Robin's face froze for a moment before he snorted and said, "Humph. Just wait and see, Phantom Thief. I hope you'll still be able to say that later." The Phantom Thief glanced discreetly in Bruce's direction, and Bruce stood still and watched from the sidelines. "Where's Batman? Is the Bruce I see really Bruce? Does Batman think that the Phantom Thief isn't worth his time? Well, it looks like I might not be as strong as he is, but it doesn't seem like something Batman would do. Or is Batman hiding somewhere while Robin is being used as bait to attract attention?" Phantom Thief pondered in his mind. He kept an eye on Robin's movements and was always aware of his surroundings in case someone came up behind him. This would consume a lot of energy, but the possibility of facing Batman made him cautious no matter what. Even though he was more careful on the inside, the Phantom Thief kept his face confident and relaxed, as if nothing could stop him. "I heard Batman has been back in Gotham for a while. I thought he would be working with you," Phantom Thief said to Robin with a smile. He didn't sound or act like an enemy. Instead, he sounded and acted like he and Robin had been friends for a long time. "Humph." Robin chuckled with disdain at the Phantom Thief's curiosity. "Batman has more important things to do. He doesn't have time for a petty thief like you, Phantom Thief. There are far more important people and situations in this city than you. But you've never missed any of my performances, do you?" The Phantom Thief teased with a sly grin on his face. "Phantom Thief." Robin's face turned red with anger as he said each word. "Think carefully, trying to talk your way out won't make me go easy on you." Meanwhile, Robin's appearance caused a stir and discussion in the audience. "I knew lighting the bat signal wasn't that simple. Even though it's Robin and not Batman who came, I believe their confrontation will be just as intense. Look, Robin seems to be talking to the Phantom Thief. What are they saying? Why can't we hear their voices? Did they cut off the loudspeakers? Why is Robin chatting with the Phantom Thief? And it looks like they're getting along. I thought that Robin and Batman were both strong, determined people who hated villains. Stop chatting, and let's see some action. I want to see them fight. I want to see them fight. Enough, what nonsense are you talking about? If you're sick, go to Arkham for treatment, stop making a scene here." A small black-haired girl in the audience was lost in her thoughts as she stared in the direction of the Phantom Thief and Robin. "Hey! Look at that! The Phantom Thief is moving. He's walking over to the bat signal." At this moment, an audience pointed towards the grassy area. "So, what's your plan? Are you going to charge at me recklessly like those GCPD officers did, rush over here, and give me a good beating?" On the grassy field, the Phantom Thief continued speaking as he walked. He went around the bat signal to the other side and reached out to gently touch the bat signal and the torn white cloth that covered it. The bat signal was lit this time, unlike earlier, when the white cloth covered it. This allowed a small slit of light to show through the white cloth. Also, when the Birdarang had long cuts in the white cloth a few moments ago, some of the light from the bat signal got through the holes and into the sky. But what used to be a clear and complete bat symbol in the sky is now a broken and unclear image. In addition to the light shining through, the torn holes also showed some parts of the bat signal, which the high-speed cameras could see. "There's no need to go to all this trouble to deal with you." Robin spoke confidently. "I've seen through all the tricks you used last time, and you have no way out." "Oh, it sounds like you are very confident in yourself." The Phantom Thief expresses surprise. "But if I remember correctly, you weren't present during the last rehearsal, right?" Seeing Robin's certainty, the Phantom Thief observes him skeptically. "Do you mean to tell me that you've figured out all my tricks just from watching rehearsal footage? I find that hard to believe." Phantom Thief said skeptically as he examined Robin from head to toe. "I guess someone helped you put everything together," he suggested with a knowing look. "Humph, and what if they did? I'm not a lone wolf like you. I have partners. What's wrong with accepting help from a partner? Robin answered with confidence and showed no sign of being embarrassed. You truly are something, Robin. The phantom thief chuckled and shook his head. His eyes gleamed with a hint of admiration. Another thought crossed his mind, indeed, the tricks from last time couldn't escape Batman's eyes. But fortunately, I have prepared Plan B. I wonder if Batman will think of something even deeper than me. On the other side, Robin also thought, for the past few days, I've been reviewing the entire process of the Phantom Thief's actions with Bruce. In the end, I came to the best conclusion. Robin stared intently at Phantom Thief while recalling the method he used that day. Bruce thinks that a unique mirror or lenses on the inside of the white cloth concealed the bat signal rather than making it appear to disappear as the Phantom Thief claimed. In other words, there are a ton of lenses hidden beneath the white cloth that is currently covering the bat signal, and some of them might have already suffered damage from the boomerang. Phantom Thief covered the bat signal twice with the white cloth. The first time was to cover the lenses on the surface of the bat signal. The second time was to make everyone believe that the bat signal had vanished. After all, if the bat signal was still in its original place, the white cloth couldn't have been spread out on the ground. But, were the two white cloths used in the bat signal and the spread out on the ground actually the same? Robin's eyes gleamed as he focused on the Phantom Thief's hands. With Phantom Thief's incredibly quick hand speed, it wouldn't be difficult to switch between two white cloths without attracting anyone's attention. All he had to do was dig a hole in the middle of the second white cloth, just big enough to let the bat signal through. The special lenses on the bat signal would make the cloth and the ground look like a single piece of fabric, as if the entire white cloth had indeed been spread out. This is why Phantom Thief had to destroy those 7 high-speed cameras, because his action of switching white cloths may have been caught on camera. Chapter 152, Joy and Happiness. It's all about who stands in the rain with you, when they could be dry if they wanted to. Unknown. It had to be said that when Robin learned the truth about the Phantom Thief's technique, he was somewhat disappointed. This technique was simply too simple, even to the point of being old-fashioned. But at the same time, he couldn't help but be amazed by Phantom Thief's thinking because, at least at that moment, he had tricked everyone, including Bruce. Bruce knew deep down that the bat signal couldn't just vanish into thin air. He didn't immediately understand the truth behind the Phantom Thief's entire technique. Despite his already impressive thinking speed, it took him some time to realize this. Many people might not have figured it out even after thinking for several days. Even Robin himself had been puzzled for a whole day and night until Bruce's hint woke him up. I have now torn the Phantom Thief's white cloth. It can no longer perfectly cover all the bat signal, and he cannot freely change to another white cloth. In addition, the bat signal is still lit. As long as there is a gap between the lenses, the light will get through and expose the truth that the bat signal hasn't disappeared. Robin thought happily. I'm confident that even if the connection between Phantom Thief's custom lenses is tight enough to cover the light from bat signal if he changes to another white cloth later, this truth will be exposed. If Phantom Thief hadn't changed the white cloth, he wouldn't have been able to show that the bat signal had disappeared by placing a white cloth over it in the same place, which would have left him standing there doing nothing. In other words, Phantom Thief had changed from the technique he demonstrated during the rehearsal. Phantom Thief's secrets were out, so he couldn't possibly steal the bat signal, let alone the ocean gem that was hidden inside it. By then, it would be easy for Robin to win. Also, this victory wouldn't be won by catching the Phantom Thief or fighting. Instead, it would be won by beating him at the thing he was best at and was most proud of, the art of magic. This kind of victory is like a riddle that even the Riddler couldn't solve, as it turns Scarecrow's fear toxin into a courage gas. Defeating the opponent on their own field will be a real blow, and Robin can use this chance to change Phantom Thief's mind and help him stop being a criminal artist and get back on the right path. Isn't that a great achievement? For now, all that mattered was to see what the Phantom Thief planned to do. The material used for this white cloth isn't cheap, and it's been cut like this. Oh, what a pity. Phantom Thief sighed as he looked at the clear and narrow slits on the fabric. Robin, do you realize you're damaging someone else's private property? Do you think you have the right to say that? Robin's mouth twitched, and he didn't look happy. He sometimes wondered if the Phantom Thief even knew he was committing a crime. At least I've never caused any real property damage to anyone, and I haven't hurt people. Oh, I forgot about the Penguin. His money laundering company was busted because of me, and they most likely lost a lot of money. The Phantom Thief waved his hand. I'm not making excuses for my actions, Robin. I'm well aware that I'm breaking the law. But what I want to say is that the things you superheroes do are not much different from what I do. Do you think I've broken more laws than you? Robin's expression slightly froze. He hadn't expected the Phantom Thief to suddenly start talking about these things. You don't need to rush to argue with me. I know that if you really want to do something good in this hellhole place called Gotham, you can't always follow the law. Those illegal actions you all take are necessary to fight criminals. The Phantom Thief continued speaking without waiting for Robin to respond. Perhaps you believe that you are violations of the law for noble reasons, while I'm just someone who wastes a lot of social resources to fulfill my performance art and might even influence ordinary citizens to imitate thieves. Robin listened to the Phantom Thief's words in a daze, as he didn't know what he was trying to say. Is it because he predicted his own failure and lost hope of winning that he confessed his guilt? Robin. The Phantom Thief suddenly spoke. Look at the people in the audience around you. Robin looked at Phantom Thief skeptically, and Phantom Thief just glanced back at him casually. He looked around the audience. What expressions do you see on their faces? The Phantom Thief asked. Are they worried about their own safety? Are they terrified of what might happen next? No. The Phantom Thief answered his own question. These people are just looking forward to my performance because the Phantom Thief's performance brings them genuine joy and happiness from the bottom of their hearts. Robin, don't you think it's a good thing to see such expressions on people's faces in a city like Gotham? The Phantom Thief continued. Are darkness and despair the only things in this city? Don't the people living here deserve a moment to catch their breath? What did those ordinary people do wrong? I've given the people of Gotham a little time to breathe during their days of fear in a place that's not so terrifying. So tell me, what's the real difference between you and me? Well. Robin was about to say something, but suddenly it felt like something was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. Indeed, fighting crime might be for a noble cause, but is bringing joy to others really so bad? Both of them involve breaking the law. When he thought about it, there didn't seem to be much difference between him and the Phantom Thief. However, Robin couldn't help feeling that something was off. The Phantom Thief might be twisting the concept. Robin, do you know? The things thieves like me want to steal are never precious treasures, but people with a smile. Suddenly, the Phantom Thief showed a cunning smile. Seeing this sly smile, Robin immediately felt something was wrong. The Phantom Thief had just completely distracted him. Focusing his gaze, he noticed that the white cloth covering the bat signal had somehow disappeared, and the several holes in it had vanished. It had turned into a perfectly new white cloth again. When did this happen? Robin's eyes widened as he recalled the Phantom Thief's movements while he was talking. He shouldn't have had the time to touch the white cloth. Chapter 153, New Cloth. You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. Joshua Fields Milburn. I'm pretty sure Phantom Thief didn't touch that cloth just now. Robin stared intensely at the new cloth covering the bat signal, as well as Phantom Thief, who was 3 steps away from it. He seemed completely absorbed in the Phantom Thief's words earlier, but he had been watching his every move. He kept him in his line of sight, not even when he glanced at the audience. The Phantom Thief had tried to distract him like this many times before, and if Robin hadn't stayed alert, he wouldn't have survived as a hero in Gotham until now. It was because the topic Phantom Thief brought up happened to be slightly related to a question Robin had been thinking about lately. Robin would ignore anything the Phantom Thief said. But no matter what, Robin was absolutely sure that the Phantom Thief couldn't have touched the old cloth. The only time the Phantom Thief touched the white cloth was before he started talking. At that time, the white cloth covering the bat signal still had clearly visible rips or holes. If Phantom Thief had the time to change the torn cloth to a new one, it would only have been possible after that. Robin had been watching Phantom Thief the whole time and was very sure that he wouldn't have had the time to change the white cloth. Unless Phantom Thief's speed was fast enough to instantly move near the bat signal, change the cloth, and then disappear so quickly that Robin wouldn't notice, it was clearly impossible. If he truly had that kind of super speed, Phantom Thief didn't need to say all of those words just now. Robin knew that the Phantom Thief had some hidden motive when he suddenly started talking to him out of nowhere, but it didn't feel like a distraction. The Phantom Thief's talk would only draw people's attention to him. Unless that was his intention. At this point, I paid most of my attention to the Phantom Thief, which made me forget for a moment about the bat signal. But how did the Phantom Thief switch the 2 pieces of clothing without touching them? Is that even possible? A look of disbelief flashed in Robin's eyes as he continued to stare at the Phantom Thief. He knew it was impossible unless he had magic or superpowers. Otherwise, no one in the world could exchange one thing for another without touching it. But the Phantom Thief had managed to do this impossible thing. Is it possible he actually knows real magic? Robin thought to himself, but he was more likely to believe that the Phantom Thief couldn't use magic. But no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't figure out what the Phantom Thief had done just now. There's no way the white cloth was alive and switched itself, right? It had to be something that the Phantom Thief did, but what he did and when he did it was all a mystery. What was the purpose of his words just now? Humph, Robin, you definitely can't figure out how I changed the white cloth because I didn't change it at all. At the same time, the Phantom Thief had a smirk on his face. Do you think I gave that long speech to cover up something else? You're wrong. My purpose was to make you think that. Why did the torn white cloth suddenly look new? Did Phantom Thief actually swap it out with another in some unimaginable way? Of course not. He's not a wizard or something, how could he possibly perform such a trick? The answer is simple, maybe even shameful, but it was effective. He used a fabric repair item that he bought in the system, and that was made to repair holes and spots on the fabric. The solution has no color or smell, works quickly, and is also quite cheap. The Phantom Thief had just recently secretly applied repair items to the holes in the white cloth when he touched it for the first and only time in front of Robin. Then, to keep Robin from noticing that the cloth was repairing itself, Phantom Thief quickly moved to another position and started talking about the difference between him and himself. He was also right about some of the things he said. It was inevitable that superheroes would violate the law, and this was both understandable and necessary in some situations. There was no reason to be too harsh on them. But the problem is, how does one define superheroes and supervillains? Both are breaking the law, both haven't caused harm to innocent people, and both have had positive impacts on society in some way. So, why is the Phantom Thief considered a supervillain while Batman and Robin are considered superheroes? It can be argued that stealing is naturally wrong while stopping criminals is really good too, and this is a completely moral and correct judgment. But from a logical point of view, Batman might actually do much more damage to society than the Phantom Thief. For ordinary people, it's natural to think that morality is the standard that defines heroes and villains, and everything else is just irrelevant. But for intelligent people, especially those who have been exposed to Batman's principles, morality is at once the most beautiful and the most unreliable thing in the world. In Batman's view, he thinks that judging someone based on their morals is a shallow way to understand them, especially in Gotham. Therefore, when the Phantom Thief asked Robin this question, it was able to take some of his attention away from him. Phantom Thief also drew Robin's attention to himself on purpose, making Robin think he had some plan in mind. In reality, the Phantom Thief didn't do anything. He was just waiting for the repair liquid to take effect. Isn't it amazing? I didn't do anything, but the hole in the cloth suddenly repaired itself. The Phantom Thief pretended to be surprised as he spoke to Robin. I was just worried that the cloth had torn and it would be difficult to continue the magic, but now all the problems have been solved. Now, let me continue the unfinished magic trick. As he said this, the Phantom Thief was about to lift the white cloth. What did you do? At this moment, Robin asked him while quickly rushing in front of the bat signal. Phantom Thief, I don't have time to play around with you anymore. Even if you replace the white cloth with a new one, in the end, the trick you use to make the bat signal disappear will be the same old way. Before he finished speaking, Robin swiftly lifted the white cloth on the bat signal. Chapter 154, Failed Again. Robin, don't blame me for not warning you. The magician's props are not meant to be casually touched by the audience. The Phantom Thief was cautious as he watched Robin's moves with a serious expression. Humph, no need to waste words, Phantom Thief. I know there's definitely a special lens or glass hidden beneath this cloth, and that's the secret behind making the bat signal disappear. Robin snorted and ignored the Phantom Thief's warning. The Phantom Thief seemed strangely calm, which made Robin feel a little uneasy. However, the Phantom Thief might just be bluffing. After all, Batman and Robin discussed and decided upon the method for making the bat signal vanish using special lenses. He trusted his own analysis and also trusted Batman's perspective. Moreover, his hand had already grabbed a corner of the white cloth, and he had no choice but to follow through. As he exerted force with his hand, Robin forcefully lifted the white cloth on the bat signal. Just as Robin had anticipated, when he lifted the cloth, the bat signal underneath had vanished from sight. It was exactly as Phantom Thief had rehearsed before, even though the person lifting the cloth had changed, the end result was no different. Ah! At the same time, when Robin pulled back the white cloth, the people in the audience cheered loudly. Oh my gosh! Did you see that? The bat signal disappeared again. Even though everything that has happened so far is different from the rehearsal 3 days ago, the final result of the bat signal disappearing is still the same. Yet, I was worried for Phantom Thief when I saw Robin lift the white cloth just now. I was afraid that Robin would reveal the Phantom Thief's technique. But now I know that Phantom Thief didn't need me to worry at all. The bat signal was gone. Robin knew for sure that this was absolutely impossible. A few seconds ago, the bat signal was still there, and he was the one who lifted the white cloth. He hadn't done anything, so how could the perfectly fine bat signal disappear? No need to think. The lenses must have been placed on it. Robin silently thought this to himself and was about to reach forward to remove all the lenses from the bat signal. He wants to expose the secret of the Phantom Thief's technique in front of tens of thousands of people in the stadium. He wanted everyone to know that the seemingly perfect and magical magic tricks of the Phantom Thief are not actually perfect. In fact, when people find out the technique behind them, they might even find it quite boring. Are you ready, Robin? At that moment, Phantom Thief's voice suddenly came through. Are you really planning to seriously touch the air? Robin glanced sideways at the Phantom Thief, his expression half smirking. Phantom Thief, are you really so engrossed in your crime that you think the bat signal has disappeared? The Phantom Thief's sudden interruption only confirmed Robin's suspicions that he was afraid of exposing the secret of the mirror. The Phantom Thief was afraid that his secret would be revealed. Whether the bat signal has disappeared or not, I believe anyone with good vision can see it. The Phantom Thief calmly replied. It's interesting, you seem to be unusually talkative today. I remember you used to take action more than speak. Why is it the opposite this time? Robin asked confidently, as if victory were in his grasp. Phantom Thief, I even perform the magic tricks you are most proud of for you. Are you admitting defeat? Robin continued. Hearing this, Phantom Thief raised an eyebrow in surprise and asked, do you think I'm admitting defeat? No, but I believe you should. Robin replied with a smirk. Although I can't quite figure out how you managed to replace the torn white cloth with a new one without me noticing, and I'm not sure when you planted the taser devices on the legs of the GCPD officers. I'm sure that the method you used to make the bat signal disappear involves some kind of special lens. As Robin spoke, the Phantom Thief's right index finger involuntarily twitched. The movement was so subtle that it was nearly impossible to notice, but Robin's keen eyes still caught it. Phantom Thief, the Gotham City Stadium is wide open. Unlike before, there are no tall buildings for your grappling gun to latch onto, and there's no large crowd nearby for you to hide in easily. Your tri-glider is also impossible to take off from this spot, even if you've added a power engine. There's no way you can escape from right in front of me. Robin listed the disadvantages of the Phantom Thief with confidence. Phantom Thief, I advise you to give up now. Otherwise, once I expose your secret, I can't guarantee you'll be spending only a few days in the hospital. Do you really trust your judgment that much, Robin? The Phantom Thief gave a small smile with a hint of reluctance in his eyes. Don't forget, in our many encounters, you always believe you can see through me. But are you always right? How can you guarantee that this time it's me who made a big mistake? He used these words to disrupt Robin's thoughts and to make Robin more aware of the Phantom Thief's growing worry. Phantom Thief, your words won't work now. Robin replied. Batman agreed with him, so he wasn't the only one who thought this way. Did he really believe that Batman would be so easily tricked, even if the Phantom Thief could fool him? It was strange sometimes. Robin was eager to explore beyond Batman's methods and was becoming increasingly frustrated with Batman's severe, controlling nature. But, deep down, there was still a blind loyalty to Batman that he himself couldn't fully understand. Robin smirked coldly and said, Your nervousness is completely told to me now. As he spoke, Robin reached out his hand toward the seemingly empty air in front of him. Next, Robin's eyes suddenly lit up. He couldn't move forward, as his hand seemed to touch an invisible wall. The bat signal was indeed still in its original spot. Then he saw the Phantom Thief shaking his head and sighing next to him. It was clear that the winds of victory were blowing in his direction. At this moment, Phantom Thief's chances of winning were as fragile as a candle in the wind, and Robin couldn't see a future of defeat at all. Bang! Click, click, click. A muffled sound echoed as Robin's heavy fist hit the invisible wall in front of him. Immediately, the sound of glass breaking echoed. In the air spot in front of him, many cracks suddenly appeared. To be honest, you were getting very close to my plan, Robin. Well, if I must say, my performance during the rehearsal was exactly as you described. The Phantom Thief suddenly extended his hand at this moment and adjusted his top hat, and a strange light shone through his monocle. But unfortunately, the one who made the final mistake is still you. Puff. As the Phantom Thief finished speaking, a thick smoke unexpectedly erupted from the cracks caused by Robin's punch. This heist is almost over, and I am sorry that it took too long to finish. I am sure you'll be satisfied with this after the heist because the MC will really fight the real Batman, and there will be disastrous events in the upcoming chapters, and some readers wanted to know behind the trick. Chapter 155, New Signal. What? Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, Robin directly inhaled the strong smoke that flowed out. After that, a feeling that was both familiar and strange stung his eyes, nose, and entire face. This feeling, tear gas. Robin quickly reacted and stepped back after inhaling some tear gas. At the same time, he swiftly retrieved a small syringe from his utility belt and injected it into his neck, angrily shouting, "Phantom Thief!" The syringe contained a specially formulated antidote to cancel the effects of tear gas. In addition to the tear gas antidote, Robin also prepared a hypnotic gas antidote. The Phantom Thief often used these non-lethal weapons either to create chaos in the crowds while in pursuit or to put the police to sleep. Once or twice was good, but with repeated encounters, Robin naturally prepared in advance to counter these items. "Don't yell so loudly. Who told you to touch that?" The Phantom Thief just shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands wide. "I've told you before, Robin, it's best for the audience not to touch a magician's things." As the antidote took effect, the stinging sensation on Robin's face slowly decreased. In about 10 seconds, it would return to normal. He didn't have to worry about exposure to tear gas during this time because the tear gas antidote's effects would last for a long time. As Robin broke the lenses, more and more tear gas drifted out, quickly covering the center of the field. Although tear gas didn't have much effect on Robin, the thick smoke still made it hard for him to see. At the same time, the audience seats around them erupted into chaos. Did anyone see what just happened? How did a cloud of smoke suddenly appear? I don't know. It looked like Robin threw a punch at the air, and then smoke started coming out, but I'm not really sure. Darn it, the smoke is getting thicker, I can't even see where Phantom Thief and Robin are. I'm really curious, what on earth happened? Most of the audience struggled to understand the sudden change that happened in a very short time. A girl sitting in the corner had a thoughtful expression in her eyes. All right, it's getting late, and the performance has been successfully completed with Robin's help. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to close the curtains on this stage. At that moment, Phantom Thief's voice echoed throughout Gotham City Stadium, and everyone in the audience could hear it clearly. By the way, Mr. Wayne's ocean gemstone is very beautiful. It's the most beautiful gem I've ever seen. It looks like it could have come from Atlantis. Robin accidentally let some tear gas leak, so you can't see its brilliance with your own eyes. So, let's look forward to the next encounter, ladies and gentlemen. What are you joking about? Phantom Thief! Robin shouted fiercely as he gazed into the thick smoke in front of him. He turned on the special environment mode on his mask and bravely went in to search for the Phantom Thief. The bat signal is several tons heavy and can't be moved. The glider and grappling gun can't support that weight either. Since the moment I cracked the lenses, it has proved that the bat signal is still in its original spot. What kind of completed performance is this? The Phantom Thief didn't respond to his question, and Robin couldn't find any trace of the Phantom Thief for a while. Even when Robin returned to the bat signal location, it was the same. The bat signals inside was visible at this point due to the cracked lenses that had fallen off of it. It was clear that the lenses contained the whole bat signal. If you leave now, it means you're running away, Phantom Thief. Robin gritted his teeth. What was he talking about, seeing the brilliance of the ocean gem with his own eyes? The ocean gemstone was sealed inside the bat signal, made of a promethium alloy. How did Phantom Thief manage to take it out? Even with tools made just for cutting promethium alloy, it would take a lot of time to cut some parts of the bat signal. It had been less than 10 seconds since the tear gas had been let out. Robin couldn't believe that Phantom Thief could have cut the promethium alloy and removed the gem from inside quickly. After all, the only time Phantom Thief had the opportunity to tamper with the bat signal was just now, when Robin had to step back due to accidentally inhaling tear gas. Aside from those few seconds, it could be said that the phantom thief was always in Robin's line of sight. Even the act of lifting the white cloth was Robin's doing. The phantom thief couldn't possibly have had time to steal the ocean gemstone. I know you're still around, phantom thief. In the thick smoke, Robin was standing near the bat signal and shouting into the fog. He was constantly moving his vigilant gaze in preparation for any upcoming ambush. But it turns out, there was no need. Phantom thief decided that he would not answer, show himself, or do anything, and he would completely ignore Robin. Whether he found a hiding place or actually left, as he said, Robin couldn't just leave the bat signal and randomly search for the phantom thief. Phantom thief would still be the one losing, even though it might not look great, as long as he ultimately protected the bat signal and the ocean gem. The field in the middle of Gotham City Stadium was very big, and even though the tear gas was very strong, it dissipated at an amazing rate. After a short while, the thick smoke in front of Robin visibly dissipated. The phantom thief had also vanished. Meanwhile, the whole bat signal stood next to Robin. Robin did a complete search of the area and found that phantom thief was no longer there, at least not in the area where the security cameras were in the middle of the field. This guy's escape method is still so mysterious. There's no glider in the sky and no figure on the ground. How on earth did he manage to escape? Robin shook his head. The other theft methods could all be explained. With deep thought, anyone could find similar principles. But this bizarre ability to suddenly appear and disappear had no logical explanation. Oh well, never mind about that. Let the audience see that the bat signal is actually still in place. Robin began removing the special lenses from the bat signal one by one, which was quite easy to do when there were cracks in the lenses. After removing most of the lenses, Robin suddenly noticed that something was off about the bat signal. It seemed somewhat unusual. First of all, the outer shell of the bat signal didn't feel like metal when touched. It felt more like plastic. Then, when the bat signal was turned on, instead of giving off light as it should, it was completely dark. Also, the bat signal seemed slightly larger than before. Robin thought of a terrifying possibility. Without hesitation, he reached out, grabbed the bat signal in his hand, and lifted it up with ease. In an instant, the bat signal, which should have weighed several tons, was lifted by Robin as if it were incredibly lightweight. No, this weight is too light. Robin realized something was definitely wrong and immediately threw this so-called bat signal upwards and tossed it behind him. After that, a much smaller flashlight appeared in front of his eyes. Then it was still turned on. When the light beam was followed, a cartoon of the phantom thief appeared in the night sky. Chapter 156, Thief Signal. Oh my god! I can't believe my eyes. In the seats at Gotham City Stadium, a lot of people blurted out in shock. Just a few seconds ago, they were curious about the strange object next to Robin on the field. Now they realized it was none other than the thief signal. The special lenses covering the bat signal had the ability to alter light reflection and make it appear invisible to outsiders. But Robin had made big cracks in these special lenses, which changed how the light was reflected and removed its ability to become invisible. However, since the reflected light was still different from normal, the audience didn't see the original bat signal. Instead, it looked like a strange object that was difficult to describe. It appeared to be the bat signal in Robin's eyes as well, but he already knew it to be the bat signal. As a result, it wasn't the real bat signal but a plastic cover with the same shape as the bat signal. After Robin removed the plastic cover of the bat signal, the hidden thief signal was revealed to everyone. It projected the cartoon image of the phantom thief's symbol into the sky, just like the bat signal, which left his symbol in the sky in Gotham. The thief signal was smaller and had less power than the bat signal, so only people inside Gotham City Stadium could see the phantom thief's symbol. The people in Gotham City couldn't see any of this from outside the stadium. I thought making the bat signal disappear was already a magic trick, but I didn't expect Phantom Thief to do something even more spectacular. He actually replaced the bat signal with his own signal. The audience in the stadium was amazed. Does Phantom Thief have too much nerve? Could this lead Batman to believe that the Phantom Thief intends to take his place? One audience member expressed concern and excitement. Probably not. There have been too many people over the years who have tried to take Batman's place in Gotham, but have you ever seen anyone succeed? There wasn't even one. The Phantom Thief won't even think about this if he's smart. A second audience member said confidently. Indeed, I think Phantom Thief is just an artistic magician who wants to entertain us with his free magic show. He does not intend to become a masked vigilante or take over Gotham. He doesn't care if someone else is Batman. A third audience member agreed with the previous one. I wonder how Batman will react. I was looking forward to a direct fight between the Phantom Thief and Batman. I thought we'd get to see that this time, but it's still just Robin and the Phantom Thief, like before. The first audience member shook their head. Speaking of Robin, have you noticed that he hasn't been doing well lately? At this point, another audience interjects. Now that you mention it, it does seem that way. Let's not even mention anything else, just the fact that Robin has fought the Phantom Thief so many times and always lost. It's definitely a drop from what he did before. Yeah, and in the past 2 months, Robin doesn't seem to be as ruthless as he used to be when he faces other criminals. When he fights robbers, he only knocks them out. He doesn't do more serious damage. I think he's holding back on purpose, but I don't know why. Where did you hear this news? Batman and Robin don't like to be in the spotlight. They rarely make it into the news all year. Only when the Justice League shows up does Batman get more attention. Otherwise, many people still think Batman is an urban legend. Well, I have a relative who works in the GCPD. In the eyes of the audience, the events of today have already ended. The Phantom Thief had won again, as usual. Even though there was a strange feeling around this event, what did that matter to the regular people who had just come to watch the show? On the other side, in the center of the field, Robin clenched his fists as he looked at the Phantom Thief's smile in a thief signal, which looked like a mocking cartoon image. Bang! Robin hit the thief signal in anger, which broke the light bulb and made a loud noise. The bat signal had been switched with the thief signal right in front of him, but he didn't realize it until the last second. When did Phantom Thief switch it? How did he do it? Where did the real bat signal go? How could he move a several-ton heavy bat signal? Robin didn't know any of this, and he couldn't even imagine the possibilities. Bruce had thought that the Phantom Thief might be a real magician or have access to some kind of advanced space technology. Is this true? Or maybe both? The answer was, it was close but not quite accurate. Phantom Thief had not learned any real magic at the moment, and there is currently no such thing as space technology. However, it was also impossible to say that Phantom Thief hadn't used any advanced technology at all. He did use advanced technology, both the ones he bought through the system and the ones he made himself using the technology that already existed in the world. For example, the special lenses that made the bat signal invisible were something he had made at home. Of course, the raw materials had been bought through the system because many things were hard to get and not easy to buy. The raw materials exchanged through the system were normally cheap, as long as they weren't something like Amazonium or nth metal, which were super metals with mysterious properties. It wasn't hard to imagine that Phantom Thief had used some sort of advanced technology to switch the bat signal for the thief signal. At this moment, in the center of Gotham City Stadium, there was a large hole dug about 5 meters underground. The Phantom Thief and the missing bat signal were both found in the hole. While the Phantom Thief was using a hard cutting tool to open the promethium alloy of the bat signal, he heard a noise from above and immediately looked up. Phew, luckily, Robin didn't notice any problems with the ground. The Phantom Thief breathed a sigh of relief. The system was helpful, and the layer of real grass that he bought created a convincing illusion. Above him was not just a 3-meter-high empty space, there was also a layer of soil and a layer of grass on top of that. Of course, Phantom Thief couldn't simply pass through a 2-meter-thick layer of soil to get down this pit. Instead, he used the system to temporarily exchange for soil and grass, creating an illusion for those on the surface. If he had used just a single layer of fake grass to cover the dug-up hole, it would have been far too easy to discover. So what was going on here? While the Phantom Thief couldn't move the several-ton heavy bat signal, he somehow used gravity. Why did he originally set aside 3 days after the rehearsal? The reason for this was actually to dig underground. With the help of the system, he bought layers of soil to cover part of the hole so he didn't have to worry about it being discovered. Otherwise, how else could the Phantom Thief have spent those 3 days only gambling with the Penguin at the Iceberg Casino? Chapter 157, Underground. A few days ago, when Bruce Wayne held a press conference to announce his challenge to the notorious Phantom Thief, Dean started thinking about how to plan his next crime. Bruce's challenge came as a surprise. Even though Dean had anticipated a possible situation like this, he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. This put Dean at a disadvantage and made him somewhat helpless. The Gotham City Stadium is an open space, and the bat signal, which held the ocean gem, was placed in the middle of the field. A perimeter was also set up to prevent anyone from getting close to the bat signal. This meant that Dean couldn't do a complete inspection of the site or make preparations as he had in the past. Because only a few people were allowed on the field, everyone else could only go to the stands, and even those few were not allowed to get close to the bat signal. From the stands, Dean couldn't gather enough useful information or make any preparations. Dean was able to get an understanding of the Gotham City Stadium as it had a real-time live stream available 24/7. But he still had to figure out how to get close to the bat signal and successfully steal the ocean gem inside it. On the other hand, the challenger was Bruce Wayne, the famous Batman, an advisor to the Justice League, and the world's greatest detective, and he held many legendary titles. This added a huge amount of mental pressure for Dean. During that time, Dean racked his head and thought of many different plans, but he eventually gave up on all of them because they didn't have a good chance of working. Dean didn't feel safe about any of his plans because Batman was likely to be his opponent. It wasn't until Dean returned home and entered his secret underground room that he had a sudden inspiration. He remembered how he fooled Batgirl with the dual secret room illusion. He used the system to make fake dust, which made her think that the secret room hadn't been entered in a long time. So, if he could use the system to buy fake dust, why couldn't he buy other things? After thinking about this for a while, Dean actually came up with a plan that could work. Inside the Gotham City Stadium, no one could get close to the bat signal, even if they tried to disguise themselves or sneak up on it. The only option was to go straight to them, which was basically like walking into a trap. At least on the ground, Dean couldn't approach the bat signal. Naturally, the only way to approach the bat signal was from the sky and underground. Why did he come up with two ways? The reason was simple. Dean wanted to make a big distraction by rehearsing his plan to come down from the sky in front of everyone. Then, he would use the underground method during the actual crime, but only if everyone wasn't looking. As for the part where Phantom Thief made bat signal disappear, the first time he simply used special lenses to make bat signal invisible, and the second time he actually made bat signal disappear. However, the people in the audience believed that both of these performances used the same method. Dean decided that it was important to have a backup plan. He believed in Batman's abilities and was sure that Batman could figure out the method he used during the rehearsal. So he had to make a backup plan. Even though he didn't end up running into Batman, which was unexpected but not a big deal, Dean found it hard to put these two plans into action. The sky plan could be done. He just needed to prepare a few more remote-controlled gliders and high-density smoke. This would allow him to quickly create a thick fog above the stadium. Dean planned to connect the remote-controlled glider to his shoulders with a rope in advance of the exit. When he wanted to leave, he would first use a smoke bomb to hide himself. Then, he would use the high-speed recoil of the rope to lift him up into the air, and he would quickly escape using the thick fog as cover. On the other hand, the underground plan was much harder to put into action. He had to dig a hole in a secret location outside the Gotham City Stadium and continue digging until he reached beneath Bat Signal's position in the center of the field. This was a huge amount of work. Since this world has such advanced drilling technology, digging the hole was pretty easy. Dean could buy a high-quality Wayne Tech drill bit with a simple disguise, and 3 days were more than enough to dig to the stadium. He even had time to go to the Iceberg Casino. The most troublesome issue was how to handle the dug-up dirt or soil and how to hide the hole. The soil couldn't just vanish by itself. If there was suddenly a big pile of soil and a big hole near the stadium, it would be hard not to notice. If he wanted to move the soil far away and throw it away, it would take too long. It might not be enough to dig into the stadium in 3 days. The longer it took, the worse it would be for Dean. The longer Dean delays, the more time Batman and Robin have to consider the possibility of his second plan. Dean needed to shorten the time between the rehearsal and the actual operation. 3 days was already considered long, and there was no way to make it shorter. In short, solving the problem with the soil is urgent for Dean. At this point, it was time for the system to come in. As mentioned earlier, Dean had been able to buy dust using the system, so buying soil was just as easy. By filling the hole with soil, it can blend in with the surrounding soil and look like nothing was dug there. It's no longer a problem to hide the hole. As for the soil that was dug up, Dean had to buy a device in the system that could absorb the soil. This device is quite amazing. It can use soil as a power source, and its function is to absorb dirt. It might sound complicated, but in short, it takes in soil and turns it into some kind of energy, which is then used to absorb even more soil. The more soil it absorbs, the more energy is generated. The more energy is consumed, the more dirt is absorbed, and so on. Of course, the device has a limit on how much it can absorb. When it gets to that limit, it will break. Dean had to buy a total of 3 of them to clean up all the dirt. This was unfortunate because Dean's points were already low. Luckily, Dean's performance this time went very well. The Gotham City Stadium was full of tens of thousands of people, so anyone can imagine how many points this would bring him. It was probably more than what he had earned from his last crime. No investment, no return. When Dean thought about the points he would make in this show, he didn't feel as bad about spending those amazement points. I shouldn't stay here for too long. I need to leave quickly. With the hard cutter drawing a circle on the bat signal, a hole was cut out of the bat signal, which was made of promethium alloy. Dean took the ocean gem from the bat signal, put it on a ready oxygen tank, and hurriedly left through the tunnel he had spent 3 days digging. Even though a 2-meter-thick layer of exchanged soil covered his head, it should be safe for a while. However, there was no guarantee that someone wouldn't suddenly decide to dig 6 feet under. That wouldn't be fun at all. Chapter 158, Late. At the same time, in the middle of the grassy field at Gotham City Stadium, Robin punched the thief signal, finally putting an end to the whole incident, or did he? It's not clear if it was completely over, but there seemed to be no more issues. Chief. What just happened? Outside the perimeter, the GCPD guards, who Phantom Thief's electric shock had knocked out, slowly woke up and looked at Commissioner Gordon with a confused expression. As Phantom Thief said, the strength of the electric shock wasn't that strong, and they only passed out for a few minutes before regaining consciousness. Phantom Thief has escaped. Jim said it expressionlessly. What? Over a dozen young guards quickly got up from the ground and looked around. They saw that the bat signal was gone and had been replaced by a small spotlight that someone had broken down. They were looking confused. Chief, what's going on here? Did the Phantom Thief escape? Did he really steal the bat signal? What else could it be? Did the bat signal grow legs and run away by itself? Jim retorted sarcastically. Commissioner Gordon, take down the perimeter. We need to search the scene carefully. I still can't believe that the Phantom Thief could have taken something as heavy as the bat signal. He must have left behind some clues. Bruce Wayne walked over and said so solemnly. Yes, Mr. Wayne and I were thinking the same thing. If Phantom Thief really managed to carry away several tons of the bat signal on his own, then everything we thought we knew about him has been wrong. Jim nodded and then comforted the guards, who had just regained consciousness. How are you feeling? Are you able to move your body normally? I feel fine, Chief, it's like I just woke up from a nap, and I'm not in any pain at all. The guards replied after moving their bodies a bit. Are you sure? Don't push yourselves. Jim continued. We are sure, Chief, our bodies are really okay. One of the guards assured. Great, then come with me now to remove the perimeter. With that, Jim led a dozen officers to remove the perimeter surrounding the center of the field. How are you doing, Robin? After the perimeter was taken down, Jim and the officers started a thorough search. On the other hand, Bruce Wayne approached Robin and asked him quietly. I'm fine, Mr. Wayne. You know, I'm usually quite optimistic. Robin replied with a faint smile. In fact, Phantom Thief's actions this time got me a little too emotional. Whether it was the way he used words or the way he changed from the bat signal to the thief signal, it made me feel things I couldn't control. I even broke that signal. Robin confessed. But I'm much calmer now. After what happened today, I might need to change how I understand Phantom Thief. Listening to Robin's words, Bruce reached out and patted his shoulder, saying, I believe you'll catch him one day. Thank you, and I will. Robin replied. What are you two talking about? Jim walked over and asked. Not much, we're just talking about what happened when the bat signal was covered by smoke a moment ago. Bruce replied casually. Whoosh. Just then, a piercing sound came from the sky. Suddenly, a strange vehicle that looked like a batwing landed very quickly on the grass of the sports stadium, catching everyone's attention immediately. That's the batwing. The citizens who had planned to leave stopped in their tracks when they saw this scene. In Gotham, there's only one person who can pilot that aircraft. Oh my goodness, Batman is here, but why? The Phantom Thief has already successfully stolen the gem and left. Why is he coming now? You ask me, but based on my understanding of Batman, he was probably dealing with a supervillain who was even more dangerous, but now he's free. It makes sense. Since Robin is here, it's normal for Batman to handle other supervillains. Oh my god! Why does Gotham have so many supervillains? The audience began discussing Batman. As they suspected, the person flying the Batwing was indeed Batman. After the Batwing landed on the lawn, the cabin door opened automatically. A muscular man wearing a black suit with a developed physique walked out, and it was Batman. He walked slowly toward Robin. Why did you come? Didn't you say you had other things to deal with today? Robin asked with surprise and doubt when seeing Batman's arrival. Mr. Wayne, Commissioner Gordon, I need manpower, a lot of manpower. Robin asked Batman a question, but Batman didn't answer him. Instead, he spoke to Jim and Bruce. As usual, he spoke in a straightforward and hoarse voice. What do you need manpower for? Jim and Bruce asked simultaneously. To dig a hole. Batman uttered a word. This is very important for figuring out where Phantom Thief is. He placed the bat signal about 5 meters underground in the middle of the field. Hearing this, Jim and Bruce's expressions instantly changed, and they quickly went to gather people to start digging. Even without any questions, it seemed like anything Batman said was unquestionable. Now it's just the two of us here. You must tell me what's going on. Why are you here now? How did you know the bat signal was underground? Robin asked with a stern expression. I used a sonar detector to locate the bat signal's position. Batman replied. At first, I thought the Phantom Thief would escape from the sky, so I piloted the Batwing to set up an ambush above in advance to avoid arousing his suspicion. You lied to me when you said you would deal with something else today. Instead, you had Lucius disguised as Bruce Wayne. Because Phantom Thief knows Bruce is Batman and Robin didn't know Batman was coming, Phantom Thief would think Batman wouldn't care about a small-time thief like him and wouldn't realize that you blocked his escape route. Robin continued speaking and followed Batman's explanation. Without waiting for Batman to finish, Robin continued speaking. Batman didn't say anything, but he seemed to agree with what Robin said. But it seems your ambush plan didn't work. Robin ended. I underestimated the Phantom Thief, and his ability to plan exceeded my expectations. I underestimated him. His plan is quite interesting. Batman said it with a small squint in his eyes. Chapter 159, Exposed. Wayne Botanical Garden. A strange object about as thick as a straw came out of the ground in a large garden of plants near Gotham City Stadium in Gotham. At the top of this object was a 90-degree bent lens, which turned a few times before hiding underground. Immediately after, a mechanical rumble came from underground. Buzz. Buzz. A large drill came up from the ground and made a big hole in the ground quickly. A figure covered in mud showed up from the ground not far behind. Whew! Dean inhaled deeply before casually brushing off the mud from his body and flicking some of the mud away. This was inevitable when working underground. He had just crawled up from the underground tunnel he had prepared below Gotham City Stadium. Dean covered the tunnel's entrances with 2 meters of dirt so that no one else could find it. This made everything look normal from the outside. But there were also some issues about this. Every time he entered or exited the tunnel, he had to dig through these 2 meters of dirt again, which kept him covered in mud. He had to make sure there was no one on the outside before he started digging. Usually, the gardens had already closed at this time, but there was always a chance of running into security guards or other people, so it was important to check ahead in advance. That's just how things worked. There are no perfect plans. While digging a tunnel had advantages in terms of secrecy, it also brought about these kinds of problems. Based on how much time has passed, they should have found the tunnel under the stadium by now. I need to leave quickly. After climbing up from underground, Dean checked the scene to ensure he hadn't left any clues and then swiftly left the garden. At this point, it was unnecessary to use more valuable resources to cover up the tunnel hole with soil since it was only a matter of time before it would be found. The most important thing was to escape as quickly as possible. At this point, Gotham City Stadium is in the middle of the grassy field inside the stadium. A group of people with different tools started digging at the spot pointed out by Batman. They dug down about 2 meters, and a huge hole appeared in front of everyone. At the bottom of the hole, a pitch-black spotlight was lying quietly inside. It was the bat signal, which was a surprise. There was an endless and deep tunnel behind the bat signal, which served as the Phantom Thief's most likely escape route. Batman was right, the Phantom Thief really brought the bat signal underground. When everyone saw this scene, they couldn't help but look at Batman and Robin with shocked expressions. Jim and Bruce were the ones with the calmest expressions. They had been in touch with Batman for too long, and over the years, he had rarely been wrong. But when they saw the bat signal, they couldn't hide the look of disbelief in their eyes. It wasn't because Batman was right, but because of the Phantom Thief. They couldn't figure out how the Phantom Thief had managed to move the bat signal underground. After all, there was a layer of soil 2 meters thick on top of it. Could the Phantom Thief dig tunnels through the ground? This was something that not only puzzled them, but even Batman found it somewhat incredible. Phantom Thief had dug a tunnel 5 meters below the ground that was just big enough for an adult to crawl through. He made a space about 3 meters high in the underground area under the grassy field's center, which was just big enough for the bat signal to fit in. The bat signal happened to be directly above this hole and had fallen into the pit without any issues due to gravity. Honestly, this method itself wasn't particularly mysterious or hard to imagine. There were similar methods used in movies, like digging a large hole underground and covering it with something that looked like it belonged there, such as a wooden or metal board, and then, when the mechanism was triggered, the board would automatically open, causing the object above to naturally fall into the hole. Even when Phantom Thief was rehearsing before, someone considered that the bat signal might be buried underground. However, Phantom Thief's tunnel had not yet reached the stadium, so repeated checks showed that everything looked good below the grassy field. The 2-meter-thick layer of soil on the surface made it difficult to find the traces of a tunnel using normal methods, even if Phantom Thief had already dug his tunnel by that point. There will be no one who will just dig 2 meters deep in the lawn to see if there is a tunnel below. So the question is, how did Phantom Thief get the bat signal to fall through the 2-meter-thick layer of soil and into the deeper hole? No one could have planned this, not even Batman. At least, it was absolutely impossible to use any normal methods. Does the Phantom Thief really have magical powers? Or did he use a kind of teleportation technology? If that's the case, why did he dig this tunnel? Batman asked himself as he stared at the seemingly endless underground path in the hole. He could have just used teleportation to move the bat signal. So why didn't he just do that? If his ability to teleport is limited, he could have chosen to teleport the gemstone inside the bat signal. There was no reason to go through the extra trouble of taking the bat signal away. Is it just to make a magic show more exciting? What if Phantom Thief didn't have the direct ability to teleport the bat signal? How did he make the bat signal pass through the 2-meter-thick soil? As he pondered, Batman turned to look at the front of the bat signal, the cut part of the bat signal. He reached his hand inside, and some strange powder stuck to his fingers. These mini trackers were hidden inside the bat signal and on the gemstone. These trackers were so small that they were almost the same size as dust, and once they were scattered, they were almost impossible to see. Batman thought that the Phantom Thief should have picked up some of these trackers on his hand or sleeve when he reached in. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. All the trackers were still in their original places, and the ones attached to the gemstone had all been removed. However, this was expected. What Batman was most concerned about right now wasn't the trackers, but the cut on the bat signal. The cut is unusually smooth. The Phantom Thief completed the cut in a very short time. This level cannot be reached by any cutting tools, not even those made specifically for Promethium alloy by Wayne Enterprises. This means he has some kind of cutting-edge tool that surpasses modern Earth technology, alien technology, future technology, or some unknown technology. If the Phantom Thief can directly teleport the gemstone out of the bat signal, why did he use a tool to cut it? Taking away the bat signal can be explained as a staged effect, but when he took out the gemstone underground, there was no audience. There is no need for that. Batman furrowed his brow. The more he thought about it, the more strange it all seemed. The Phantom Thief's actions seemed confusing and strange. Chapter 160, The Losing Bet. Did you find any clues? Just then, Robin jumped down, and Batman asked who was beside him. No, there are no clues. The Phantom Thief is also great at avoiding being caught. He must have received professional training. There are very few people who would notice such tiny details. Batman replied without turning his head. When we get back, I'll need to make important changes to the Phantom Thief's file on the Bat computer. See, I've told you before, the Phantom Thief is not as simple as he appears to be. Robin crossed his arms. You're right, so what? Batman turned his head and asked expressionlessly. Are you now proud of yourself because you underestimated a criminal's abilities? Of course not. God, how could you think that? I'm just saying that the Phantom Thief's skills should get the attention they deserve. Well, I want to argue with you for doubting my abilities just because I haven't caught Phantom Thief yet, but it's not what you said." Robin frowned and expressed his dissatisfaction. Batman didn't respond with words. Instead, he pulled out an unusual-looking gun from his utility belt. The gun barrel was not the usual round shape but square, and the back of the gun barrel was made wide and equipped with a display screen. After taking out the gun, Batman aimed it at the end of the tunnel and pulled the trigger. However, this gun didn't shoot bullets. Instead, it emitted a high-frequency sound wave that was invisible, intangible, and inaudible. These sound waves bounced back and reached the gun at the end of the tunnel. Soon, the distance in kilometers was displayed as a long number that appeared on top of the gun barrel. It was a sonic range finder. "This tunnel leads to the Gotham Botanical Garden. Robin, come with me." Batman gave Robin a quick order, and Robin followed him out of the tunnel. "What's the situation down there?" As Batman appeared from the tunnel, Jim and his men surrounded him. While Batman and Robin had been searching in the tunnel, the others had kept their distance. "The Phantom Thief has already escaped with the gemstone. The tunnel he dug leads directly to the Gotham Botanical Garden. I'm going there now to take a look." Batman answered emotionlessly. "Let my people come with you," Gordon suggested. "No need, you won't be able to keep up," Batman said as he boarded the Batwing, with Robin reluctantly following behind. Looking at the Batwing disappearing into the sky, Jim remained silent for a moment. "What are you all looking at? We still have work to do. Bring up the bat signal quickly. The underground tunnels below the Gotham City Stadium need to be filled as soon as possible, or who knows when they might collapse." Suddenly, Jim turned around and looked at the people standing still behind him. "Yes, sir." With Jim's command, everyone immediately started working themselves. As the saying goes, when some are happy, others are sad. The performance of the Phantom Thief at Gotham Stadium was a great success. No doubt the Phantom Thief was happy, and the audience who watched his performance was also happy. As for the ones feeling down, it was definitely the GCPD, which had repeatedly failed, and someone who had just lost again. At least that's how the public saw it. Who could this person be? Damn it! Can someone tell me why Phantom Thief won again this time? Why? Why is it always Robin who goes up against the Phantom Thief? Can someone tell me why Batman didn't show up until after the thief was gone? Inside the Iceberg Lounge, Penguin was angrily shouting and cursing. Did Batman lose his mind? He actually waited until the Phantom Thief left before showing up. Isn't he always like appearing out of nowhere? Doesn't he usually work with Robin? Why not this time? I've had Gotham's major gangs keep their thugs in check for these past few days and give Batman enough time to deal with Phantom Thief, but he did nothing. Ignatius was leading a group of Penguin's subordinates, who were standing still in the corner of the room. 30 million. I've lost $30 million for no reason again. That fucker matches Malone, he must have done something I don't know. Otherwise, how could he be so sure that Batman wouldn't personally deal with the Phantom Thief? Thinking back to the bet with Matches a few days ago, Penguin was full of anger. At first, he thought Matches wanted to cooperate and was trying to find a way to give him money. While the Penguin didn't know what Matches needed help with, $30 million was not small money. If Matches Malone really wanted his help, and it was negotiable as long as the money was right, then they could definitely come to an agreement. If the money wasn't enough, they could always add more later. Up until an hour ago, that's how the Penguin saw it. However, after watching Phantom Thief's live broadcast, Penguin's thoughts changed. He realized Match's proposal for a bet wasn't to give away money but to win money. Even though the Penguin had a lot of money, $30 million was a lot. It was real money that could be spent legally. It wasn't dirty or anything like fake money. While the Penguin wasn't particularly regretting it, it definitely hurt. Suddenly, Penguin turned his gaze to Ignatius and sternly said, "Find out what Matches has been up to lately. Who has he met? Has the Matches gang violated the terms of the bet?" His eyes were filled with menace, and Ignatius felt a chill down his spine. If it turned out that Matches had followed the terms of the bet and hadn't done anything to disrupt Batman, then the Penguin would have to admit defeat and pretend that he had never made that 30 million. But if it turned out that Matches was acting suspiciously these past few days and deliberately trying to cheat the Penguin out of his money, then this matter wouldn't be settled easily. As for the Phantom Thief's remarkable methods, the Penguin didn't care. He hadn't considered for a second that Batman could have underestimated the Phantom Thief's plans. In the Penguin's mind, there was nobody in Gotham that Batman couldn't handle. Yes, boss, I'll start investigating right away. Ignatius bowed his head and walked out of the room after accepting the order. On the other side, in Gotham's Diamond District, at the Thurston Mansion. After going through several twists and turns, Dean managed to get rid of the mud on his body and change into clean clothes before returning home. Then he did his usual inspection. Not bad, it seems my identity is still safe for now. Dean dragged his tired body back to his room and collapsed onto the bed. Now, it's time to settle the task reward. With a sense of anticipation, Dean summoned the system. Chapter 161, Levels. Congratulations! The host has completed the customary task of stealing the ocean gem. Mission difficulty: difficult, easy, normal, difficult, extreme, desperate, impossible. Treasure value: low, low, average, normal, excellent, outstanding, rare, legendary, incalculable. Elegance level: A, D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSS. Overall evaluation: A+. Your excellent performance and creative use of props have earned you a high rating. Rewards: 30,172 amazement points, from the audience at the stadium, GCPD Police, Jim Gordon, Robin, plus 2,400 amazement points, for completing the mission, fixed reward. Additional objective completed, stealing the bat signal, additional reward of 3,000 points. Balance: 235 amazement points with a total of 35,807 amazement points. Hearing the system's prompt in his ears, Dean couldn't help but show a hint of joy on his face. This time, he really hit the jackpot. The Gotham City Stadium, which could hold more than 30,000 people, gave Dean more than 30,000 points directly from the audience. In addition to the points received from the audience, the reward for completing the mission also increased to 2,400 points. What surprised Dean even more was that he received an additional 3,000 points as a reward for stealing the bat signal. The main reason he stole the bat signal in the first place was that getting the gem from the bat symbol using the hard cutter would take time. It would be too risky to do it openly in front of Robin and the GCPD. So, it would have been better to hide the bat signal and then do the cutting work. Of course, the topic and show by making the bat signal disappear were also part of Dean's considerations. With nearly 36,000 points, Dean hadn't seen this many points since he got the system. This time, he could finally enjoy himself. It turned out that spending almost all of the balance and leaving only a couple of hundred points was the right decision. It seemed like he hadn't made a mistake back then. After all, only those who dare to give up everything can get everything. If they don't risk much, how can they expect high returns? What should I buy for now? Dean had been struggling, so when he got a huge sum of money all at once, he didn't know how to spend it for a moment. Before, Gotham's life was pretty calm, and he didn't encounter any really dangerous villains. The Penguin had always intended to plot against him, but even so, his methods were quite cautious. As a Gotham resident, Dean lived the glorious period of the Penguin, which was right after the downfall of Falcone and the first 2 years of Batman and Robin's debut. At that time, famous supervillains like the Scarecrow, Killer Croc, Clayface, the Mad Hatter, Deadshot, Solomon Grundy. Many of Gotham's named supervillains were working under the Penguin's thumb. Although they went their separate ways many years ago and several of them ended up in prison or Arkham Asylum, none of them have been released to this day. However, if the Penguin is really determined to spend a lot of money to kill someone, Dean believes that the Penguin could easily hire those supervillains back. But the Penguin hadn't done that yet, which at least shows he doesn't have a strong desire to kill the Phantom Thief. That's also why the Phantom Thief has had a somewhat smooth time in Gotham recently. So far, Dean hasn't encountered any troublesome characters. Characters like Firefly and Man-Bat, who had appeared recently like Phantom Thief, hadn't given Dean any major problems either. In short, before this incident, Dean could easily complete his crime performances even without relying on the powerful items provided by the system. But now the situation is different. Bruce Wayne's public challenge to the Phantom Thief has sent a signal to Dean. It meant that he was now on Batman's radar. While he hadn't encountered Batman at the stadium this time, there was no guarantee it wouldn't happen next time. When it comes to facing Batman, Dean will have to make a major upgrade. He definitely doesn't want to end up in Arkham Asylum for further education. But, which should he upgrade to? That required careful consideration. Let's start by checking my current abilities and equipment. Dean thought as he brought up his personal panel. Name: Dean Thurston. Age, 16 years old. Skills, proficiency magic, proficiency vehicles, proficiency lockpicking, proficiency shooting, proficiency hand-to-hand combat, quick disguise, voice alteration without props. Items, card gun, grappling gun, triangular glide, bulletproof cloak, high-speed self-filling dummy, homemade smoke grenade, homemade flashbang, homemade tear gas, homemade hypnotic gas, mini surveillance system jammer, stone of misfortune, hard cutter, mini bug, fabric repair solution, soil absorption device. Talents, resistant skin, low level. Superhuman reflexes, mid level. Curse resistant shield, sea level misfortune. Balance, 35,807 WoW points. What an impressive balance. At this point, Dean looked at his 3 existing talents. According to the system's description of talents, they are divided into 5 levels: low level, mid level, high level, special level, and perfect level. Dean can directly obtain high level talents by buying high level talent cards, or he can upgrade low level talents to high level talents by paying an equal amount of points. Take the resistant skin talent as an example. At the low level, it reduces external damage from special attributes like burning, freezing, corrosives, toxins, radiation, and explosions by 10% and accelerates healing. The mid-tier level was 35%, the high tier was 60%, the special tier was 90%, and the perfect tier was 100% immunity. The price of upgrading talents depends on the type of talent. For low, mid, and high tier talents, the prices were fixed at 1,000, 2,000, and 5,000 points, respectively. The prices start to get high for the special level talent, ranging from 10,000 to 100,000 points. The price for upgrading to perfect level talent starts at 200,000 and has no upper limit. But, considering how powerful it is, this price seems reasonable. Dean's superhuman reflexes talent was in the highest price range, with an upgrade to the special level costing 100,000 points and an upgrade to the perfect level needing 1 million points. The resistant skin talent is considered in the medium-priced range, with upgrading to the special level requiring 50,000 points and upgrading to the perfect level requiring 400,000 points. After careful consideration, Dean decided to upgrade resistant skin and superhuman reflexes to the high level. Both of these talents had a lot of potential and were essential core skills. At first glance, the description of resistant skin might not have been very impressive since it didn't offer complete immunity from damage. However, is that really the case? Of course not, because the system didn't assess damage based on the size of external attacks but on the size of the damage the host received. What does this mean? Let's say a hand grenade can kill Dean, and a missile can also kill Dean. In both cases, the system would consider them to have caused fatal damage. The resistant skin talent can reduce fatal damage to non-fatal damage. That's the real purpose of this talent. In other words, whether the enemy's attack power was 100 or 10,000, it could only deduct a maximum of 100 points from Dean's health. It could never go into negative numbers. The low-level resistant skin reduced damage by 10% and turned a fatal injury of 100 into a severe near-death injury of 90. This doesn't seem very impressive since the enemy would just have to fight again. But once it reaches a high level, resistant skin can reduce fatal damage to only 40 points of moderate damage. Didn't that sound interesting? Based on this, resistant skin seems like an invincible cheat code. But is that really the case? Chapter 162, Upgrade. Of course, it's impossible. If the resistant skin is really that invincible, its price in the system would not be just average but would be at the highest level, like the superhuman reflexes. The resistant skin reduces damage by a terrifying amount, but it doesn't work against all kinds of damage. It only applies to special damages caused by natural forms like burning, freezing, corrosion, toxins, radiation, explosions, high temperatures, etc. It doesn't provide any defense against supernatural damage. For example, any kind of magic or cosmic power can ignore the resistant skin. Furthermore, the resistant skin is also ineffective against normal damages that are not in special forms. What is considered normal damage? The most obvious example is physical combat. The resistant skin doesn't defend against punches. Dean was aware that resistant skin doesn't protect against damage from forces, kinetic energy, and other similar techniques. Dean is not sure if his understanding is correct because he feels that the system's judgment in many parts seems unscientific. But Dean feels that it should be close enough. For example, a superpowered individual who can freely manipulate gravity can forcefully tear apart Dean's body, and the resistant skin would be useless. Similarly, while the explosion's shockwave and high heat would lessen the damage to resistant skin, any shrapnel produced by the explosion could still pose a fatal threat to Dean. In short, the resistant skin's function is indeed very powerful and gives Dean excellent survivability. However, it wasn't invulnerable, not even close to indestructible. For Dean, the existence of the resistant skin is more like insurance. It allowed him to withstand extreme conditions like poison, fire, radiation, and more, and ensured his survival in hostile environments. He does not have to worry about being suddenly killed by a large-scale, unknown AoE attack. In the world of DC, no one should ever think that this is a silly worry because of the real disaster that could happen at any time. Dean believes that this is the true value of resistant skin. After spending 5,000 points to upgrade the low-level resistance skin to a high level, Dean spent another 5,000 points to upgrade the mid-level superhuman reflexes to a high level. As for why he upgraded the superhuman reflexes, the reason is even simpler. The most important quality that will help Dean survive in the DC universe is his quick reflexes. While other abilities were important, but reaction speed must be put first. Dean can do magic tricks more proficiently and dodge most attacks more easily if he can react faster. This will be true even when he gets to Central City in the future. When faced with the fastest person in the world, Dean didn't even have time to blink before he was sent to prison. Soon, his balance decreased by 10,000 points as he upgraded resistant skin and superhuman reflexes to high level. Resilient skin, high level reduces 60% of external damage caused by various special attributes such as burning, freezing, corrosion, toxins, radiation, explosions, etc., and accelerates healing. Superhuman reflexes, high level can temporarily greatly increase the body's reaction ability in necessary situations. The degree of improvement depends on the body's condition at the time, but it also leads to rapid stamina consumption. In extreme conditions, the host can keep up with movements below 10 times the speed of sound. In the inactive state, it can slowly increase the host's reaction ability up to a maximum of 10 times the speed of sound without consuming stamina. What should he buy next? Dean looked at the remaining balance of over 25,000 points and fell into contemplation. He opened the system store and scrolled through the list of items. The system had too many items, and it was impossible to count all the useful ones. After a quick glance, Dean found 10 items that would greatly help him. However, he only had enough points to buy 4 or 5 of them, and he would be broke after that. Dean didn't plan on spending all his points at once because he couldn't predict all the future possibilities. What if there was an unexpected event that happened and his current items couldn't deal with it and he didn't have enough points to buy specific items? That would be a big mistake for Dean. He decided to reserve at least 5,000 points, which meant he had around 20,000 points to spend right now. Suddenly, Dean spotted an item with great value for points. When he looked at the price, he immediately decided to buy 2 items. First, there were the Mystic Eyes. Mystic Eyes can be used on living beings and non-living objects. It can see through the basic information and abilities of all entities below God level within a single universe. Value, 12,000 points. With Mystic Eyes, Dean wouldn't have to go through additional investigations when encountering unfamiliar supervillains or superheroes. He could directly obtain their basic information. However, this basic information wouldn't be particularly detailed. It would be equal to a brief introduction, name, special abilities, and hobbies. For deeper levels of preference and personality, it wouldn't display that information. However, this is already quite useful. Next is the second item. Small Virtual Live Room can create a virtual live room with a maximum capacity of 5,000 people, which will automatically appear on the electronic device closest to the specified audience. Value, 7,500 points. The system description of this item looks a bit abstract and not very understandable. But actually, it is quite easy to understand. Firstly, the virtual live room only applies to the specified audience. For example, Dean can select people who want to watch the Phantom Thief show but are not at the location. Then, the electronic devices closest to this group of people would automatically display Phantom Thief's performance. The benefit of this is that Dean can always be sure that at least 5,000 people are watching him perform, which gives him a steady gain of 5,000 points. After all, he can't expect to have a wealthy person book Gotham City Stadium every time to allow so many audiences for Phantom Thief's shows. Phantom Thief usually appears in places like museums or vaults, where only 2,000 or 3,000 people can fit in, and the vast majority of people can't squeeze into the scene and can only watch through media live broadcasts. In the system's assessment, only those who personally witness Phantom Thief's performance on the scene can provide points, and those who only see it through media live broadcasts cannot provide points. The existence of the virtual live room can make up for this. Not only that, but the virtual live room also has another benefit. Chapter 163, Supernatural. The grass will always look greener on the other side, until you start watering the side you're on. Stephen Bartlett. Dean couldn't stay in Gotham City forever. One day, he would step into the larger world of DC. As Dean continues to play as the Phantom Thief, he will become more skilled with his abilities and recognize his flaws. If he wants to explore more possibilities, he'll have to leave Gotham, and it won't be long before that happens. Dean won't stop improving himself. In this world, global and even cosmic-scale disasters happen often, and no one can survive those alone. Dean can't expect the Justice League to save him in the future. For him, the most important thing is always being able to defend himself. With the help of a system, Dean is sure he will reach his goals, even if he has to earn a lot of amazement points along the way. Amazement points come from the audience, but as Dean's strength increases, the situations and opponents he faces as the Phantom Thief become more dangerous. It was even possible that one catastrophic attack would kill all the live spectators. In such a situation, a virtual live streaming room is necessary and important. So far, the performances of the Phantom Thief have been relatively good, but that's because he hasn't encountered the truly dangerous and insane villains of Gotham yet. Simply put, what Dean had seen of Gotham so far was not the real Gotham. Of course, this wasn't a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, as it allowed Dean to smoothly pass his beginner phase for a long time. After completing all the exchanges, there are still 6,307 points left in the balance, which will serve as an emergency reserve for unexpected situations in the future. Finally, I can take a good rest for a while. Looking at the pitch-black night sky outside the window, Dean closes the system and stretches tiredly. After a quick wash, he went back to his bedroom and peacefully went to sleep. It's worth mentioning that before sleeping, Dean tested the effect of his Mystic Eyes ability. The Mystic Eyes is a skill that doesn't consume any stamina or have a cooldown. It merges directly with Dean's eyes, and he only needs to activate it with his consciousness. However, he can only use it on a single target at a time. Late at night, at the Gotham Botanical Garden, Batman and Robin were gathered next to a freshly dug hole. The two get down on their knees by the hole and carefully look at the collection of soil. Robin is covered in mud, which shows that he just came out of the tunnel, while Batman remains clean. It's not hard to imagine that Robin had just crawled out of the underground tunnel, but Batman didn't not. This is because the Phantom Thief only dug a small enough tunnel for him to crawl through. The size difference between Robin and the Phantom Thief allows him to move around inside. However, this size of tunnel obviously wouldn't fit Batman. A while ago, Batman instructed Robin to enter the tunnel to go back and forth between Gotham City Stadium and the Gotham Botanical Gardens. The first reason was to test how long it took Phantom Thief to arrive, and the second was to see if any clues to Phantom Thief could be found in the tunnel. It's important to mention that the soil in the tunnel is quite wet, so crawling through it would leave mud all over one's body. So, it's possible that the Phantom Thief left clues like hair or skin flakes during this process. However, after carefully searching the tunnel with a magnifying glass twice, Robin found no clues at all. He did find a few strands of hair, but unfortunately, they weren't from the Phantom Thief. They were from Robin's first trip back and forth. From the looks of it, this hole was dug not long ago. Based on the traces, I'd say it's been no more than 2 hours. Robin looked at the opening and said to Batman. Maybe not even an hour. Batman added. This is strange, really strange. Robin muttered to himself with his hand on his chin. This place is exactly like the tunnel at Gotham City Stadium, which was dug early on. But there's a 2-meter layer of soil at the entrance. How is this possible? It looks as if Phantom Thief didn't dig an entrance from the ground but instead created a tunnel straight into the ground below 2 meters. Robin had encountered the Phantom Thief many times, and he thought he knew him. However, the Phantom Thief always managed to surprise him by doing something completely new and strange. Is it possible that the Phantom Thief later covered the entrance with soil? Robin speculated uncertainly. Impossible. Batman replied with a single word. Well, I know it's impossible. If he had filled it up later, there would be traces left behind, and the color would be darker. If he had just covered the ground by a few centimeters, that might work, but filling 2 meters would definitely leave marks. With a frustrated expression, Robin sighed and waved his hand. Other than this possibility, is there any other way to achieve this? Robin asked. Exactly how could this happen? Batman found it hard to believe the Phantom Thief was capable of such a feat, even with all of his normal staged magic abilities. There was only one possibility. The Phantom Thief used some kind of supernatural power. Perhaps this idea is a bit ridiculous, but Batman takes it very seriously. Since the founding of the Justice League, he has witnessed many terrifying beings that go far beyond the imagination of the people of Gotham. His thoughts towards supernatural powers are no longer as skeptical as they used to be because these things are very real, not just fairy tales. Especially when the Phantom Thief can dig a tunnel underground without damaging the ground, it forces Batman to consider that possibility. But the problem still remains. If Phantom Thief has the ability to dig underground without destroying the ground and not only survive the lack of oxygen but also dig, then why would he waste so much effort digging a tunnel? Batman pondered in his mind. This was a question that Batman couldn't understand, and he might never understand it unless he could think of Phantom Thief having the help of a system. Regardless, we must recompile Phantom Thief's profile. Batman starts to envision version 2.0 of the Phantom Thief crime files in his mind. Let's go, Robin. Batman suddenly turns around and walks away without looking back at the hole. You're leaving just like that? We haven't found any clues yet. Robin raised an eyebrow. What clues do you expect to find if you stay here? Batman asks without turning his head. Chapter 164, Question. The next day. The warm rays of the morning sun came in through the window and fell on the face of the sleeping person, warming him gently. Dean slowly opened his eyes and groggily looked at the clock on the bedside table. 7:32 a.m. It was still early, almost 18 minutes away from the alarm going off. The reason he didn't set it directly for 8 o'clock was that he wanted to snooze for an extra 10 minutes after the alarm sounded. In addition, this meant that the alarm didn't wake Dean up. But he also didn't wake up naturally. Ding dong. Ding dong. The continuous ringing of the doorbell outside woke Dean from his sleep, forcing him to get up at an awkward time. Dean didn't worry that his identity would be questioned again and that Batman or the GCPD would come to investigate it. It's not because he has absolute confidence in his ability to hide his identity, but because if Batman and his crew were coming, they definitely wouldn't ring the doorbell. Who would come to see me so early? Is it Dick? Or is someone trying to hit on me again? It better not be Barbara. Dean thought as he quickly put on his clothes and headed towards the door. To be safe, he looked through the peephole first. And then he saw someone unexpected. A petite girl in her early teens with a spirited look stood in front of the door. Her skin had a healthy and beautiful tan tone, bright, lively eyes with deep black pupils, a head of flowing hair, and typical Asian features. This is Cassandra Cain? Dean opened the door and asked in a curious tone, "Hey, do you need something from me? And how did you know where I lived? Did Barbara tell you?" Cassandra gave a small nod to show that she had learned Dean's address from Barbara. She made a few gestures to Dean, saying, "May I come in and talk to you? I have some questions to ask you." Dean glanced at Cassandra. He couldn't see anything else in her eyes besides purity, unlike some people whose eyes were clouded. "No problem, come on in if you want. After all, a guest is always welcome, right?" Dean welcomed Cassandra with a relaxed expression as she entered. However, the moment Cassandra walked through the doorway with her back to Dean, he quickly and discreetly scanned the area outside the house. He found nothing suspicious, no strange objects, and no unusual people. Dean calmly closed the door. This didn't necessarily mean Dean had strong suspicions about Cassandra, but rather a cautious instinct. Who knows if someone might be secretly tracking Cassandra? Milk? Or cola? In the living room, Dean opened the refrigerator filled with different beverages and asked Cassandra. Sitting on the couch, Cassandra shook her head to show that she didn't want anything to drink. All right. Dean wasn't sure how to interact with this silent girl, so he closed the refrigerator. "So, what do you want to ask me?" Dean sat on the couch opposite Cassandra and got straight to the point. Then Cassandra took out a newspaper with a close-up picture of Phantom Thief on the cover. She pointed to the picture of Phantom Thief in the newspaper and then pointed to Dean, calmly making a few hand gestures as she asked, "Are you Phantom Thief?" Hearing this, Dean's face suddenly froze. "Hey! Cassandra looked at Dean and instantly analyzed his body language. Dean was frozen, and the question earlier caused him to have a strong emotional reaction. She thought to herself. This made her even more sure of her judgment. Before, when the Phantom Thief stole the bat signal at Gotham City's stadium, Cassandra was also present at the scene. A few days ago, the incident at the Gotham City Stadium was the hot topic in Gotham, and even Cassandra, who usually didn't pay much attention to current events, heard about it on the TV in Barbara's hospital room. For some reason, she had a strong desire to meet the Phantom Thief. At that time, she didn't know what kind of person Phantom Thief was, only that he was a thief whose appearance was unknown. So, Cassandra went to the Gotham City Stadium to watch the entire performance of Phantom Thief. And the moment she saw those two people, something incredible happened. Her innate talent for reading body language automatically kicked in. This made her realize a fantastic fact. Whether it was the Phantom Thief or Batman's sidekick Robin, they both had the same body language. At least, to Cassandra's instinctual understanding of body language, Phantom Thief was just like Dean Thurston, and Robin was similar to Dick Grayson. Although Cassandra couldn't see what these two people actually looked like, she had never seen two people with the exact same body language from birth until now. Even with twins, their body language was completely different. Therefore, Cassandra was sure that the Phantom Thief was Dean. She couldn't possibly mistake someone she had seen before. Once she'd seen someone, she couldn't mistake them for someone else unless they looked like something other than a human, didn't have typical human body language, or had very confusing body language that she couldn't figure out. Clearly, both Dean and Dick were humans, they didn't have any non-human body features, and they weren't crazy enough to constantly make meaningless gestures. So, as long as Cassandra observed them, they couldn't really disguise themselves from her. The ability to read body language was that powerful, and there were more people in this world who had this ability than just Cassandra. Whoa! I never expected Cassandra to have such a terrifying ability besides her inhuman strength. On the other side, Dean was in shock. Just now, he discreetly used his mystic eyes to gather basic information about Cassandra and gain some understanding of her abilities. Since mystic eyes didn't rely on human body movements, Dean wasn't worried that Cassandra could see through it. What if I told you? I'm not the Phantom Thief? Dean asked after thinking for a moment. He looked at Cassandra with a very serious face, as if he weren't the Phantom Thief. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Cassandra's eyes widened instantly, her face filled with disbelief. He's not lying. Cassandra could tell from Dean's body language that he wasn't trying to deceive her when he told her he wasn't the Phantom Thief. But how is that possible? She wondered silently. A/N, by the way, does anyone else find it strange that Phantom Thief has combat skills? In reality, Phantom Thief is highly proficient in kendo, and his skill level is impressive. It's worth mentioning that this information is not from the Conan Dream sequence but rather from a spin-off side story in Magic Kaido. Also, there are actually quite a few people who know Kaido's identity, not just extras, but characters like Konosuke and Saguro Hakuba are aware. So I might pick Cassandra to be assistant of Phantom Thief, but not now. Chapter 165, Lied. The only true limit is the one you set for yourself. Master Shifu, Kung Fu Panda. Cassandra, although I don't know why you think I'm the Phantom Thief, maybe it's because we're both magicians, but... Dean kept talking with a calm face and a serious voice. I really am not the Phantom Thief. This sentence came from the depths of Dean's heart, and his eyes were filled with sincerity. Dean was not worried that Cassandra would see through his lie because he was telling the truth. From beginning to end, Dean had never been the real Phantom Thief, he was only pretending to be him. If it weren't for the fact that the image and style of the Phantom Thief were highly captivating and attention-grabbing, Dean might have chosen a different identity. For example, Arsène Lupin or even Lupin III. Through his mystic eyes, Dean learned the basics of information about Cassandra. Although he didn't know much about her past, her personality, or her preferences, he could clearly see her exceptional abilities. The mystic eyes thought highly of Cassandra. They stated she was the best at martial arts, had the potential to become the world's strongest fighter, and could even read people's body language instinctively. At first glance, this ability to read body language might not seem so impressive since it's similar to reading micro-expressions. But in reality, there is a world of difference between the two. Micro-expressions can be controlled through facial muscle manipulation to hide useful information or deliberately mislead others. So, if he followed this line of thought, Dean couldn't just move in strange ways to confuse Cassandra. However, what Cassandra saw in body language was not just simple limb movements. She had a very vague idea of body language, which is better described as human body language. Any instinctive, natural reaction of the human body provides her with information. The speed of walking, the swing of the arms, the contraction of muscles, the beating of the heart, the dilation of pores, the circulation of blood. Cassandra could read information from all of these and even predict her opponent's next move. It's like a combination of mind reading and combat prediction. Perhaps one or two meaningless random movements could confuse Cassandra, but a person cannot maintain such a state forever unless they are insane. Therefore, as long as Cassandra sees a person once, she can recognize the true identity of any masked individual. This is an inevitable outcome. But Dean didn't want to reveal his identity so soon. He wasn't sure if Cassandra was an enemy or a friend, or if she had come to ask him about something with a specific purpose. Since Barbara knew Cassandra better than anyone else, the chances of her being a spy were even higher. So Dean quickly started thinking about how to answer her questions. She could read his body, and he couldn't control his body perfectly, which meant that trying to deceive her with lies was impossible. He could only tell the truth, and he had to tell the truth. After all, Dean wasn't the Phantom Thief to begin with. Fortunately, Cassandra wasn't Batman or Robin. Her way of figuring out the Phantom Thief's identity wasn't based on careful logical thinking, and she didn't have any hard evidence. When Dean clearly said that he wasn't the Phantom Thief and that he wasn't lying, Cassandra was thrown for a moment into chaos. Her pupils seemed to shake like an earthquake had happened. "Hey! Are you okay?" Dean stretched out his hand and moved it in front of Cassandra's confused eyes to ask. "No, I'm fine." Cassandra snapped back to reality and shook her head at Dean. There was still a hint of disbelief on her face as she repeatedly looked Dean up and down, not sure whether to believe him or not. Dean responded calmly with a smile. Dean's body habits are indeed exactly the same as Phantom Thief's, but he says he's not Phantom Thief. Could it be possible for two people in the world to have the same body language? Cassandra thought to herself. Now that I think about it, I haven't met that many people. The world is so big, there can be two people like that. Soon, Cassandra comforted herself. Or maybe I made a mistake in my observation. She was still young, and during the years she had been roaming, she hadn't encountered any hidden martial arts masters. So, even she wasn't sure of her own potential, and it was normal for her to doubt her own judgment. "I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else. I hope I didn't cause you too much trouble." Cassandra lowered her head apologetically and made gestures with her hands to express her guilt. "I watched Phantom Thief steal that bat signal at the Gotham City Stadium, and I thought his body was very similar to yours, so I assumed you were Phantom Thief." While saying this, Cassandra hesitated, and her hand gestures were slower. She didn't know how to express what she had said through body language. Ugh! What a terrible apology! Dean could somewhat understand Cassandra's meaning, but he still wanted to comment on her apology. That's probably the importance of studying. No wonder Cassandra was so grateful to Barbara for teaching her how to read. "Do you care about who the Phantom Thief is?" Dean asked, and this wasn't just a random question. He felt that Cassandra wasn't the type who would be interested in Phantom Thief. Her style was quite different from superheroes, at least from those in the Bat family. He wanted to know what made Cassandra interested in Phantom Thief and why she had come to his door to ask about it. Hearing this, Cassandra's expression darkened, and she didn't respond, as if she had something difficult to say. "Well, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine." Dean waved his hand. If she didn't want to talk about it for now, he couldn't force her. He didn't want to rush things too quickly, especially as Cassandra was a good fighter. Dean estimated that he would really not be able to beat her. However, with my exquisite psychology and micro-expression skills, I can be sure that Cassandra's difficulty in speaking is definitely not a small matter. Perhaps it is the reason she became an orphan. Dean speculated in his mind. Thinking about it, Cassandra has some complicated emotions towards her own surname. Usually, a surname comes from one's father, and Cassandra's martial arts proficiency is definitely from professional training. It's likely what her father taught her. So, it can be assumed that something important happened to her family. Combined with her status as a roaming orphan. Could it be that her father was a skilled thief too and got caught and imprisoned, which led to Cassandra roaming around? Is that why she's interested in Phantom Thief? This possibility is quite high. Dean thought to himself. According to Cassandra's patterns of behavior, Batman has probably not yet had an impact on her, and Barbara doesn't appear to be aware of Cassandra's abilities from the way she acts. Although I can't be completely sure that Cassandra has no connection to the Bat family, I might be able to. Chapter 166, 1. Sometimes you're so focused on the future that you don't realize you're in the middle of what you used to pray for. Unknown. After a while. I'm really sorry for bothering you. Cassandra hurriedly apologized to Dean before leaving. There is no need to be so polite. I didn't blame you, so why feel guilty? Dean smiled helplessly. After their brief conversation earlier, Cassandra had been feeling guilty for mistaking Dean for the Phantom Thief. Sometimes, Dean wondered if he had given people the impression that he was deceiving them. After that, the two of them talked for a while about many things, including Barbara's recent health. In last month's Man-Bat incident, Barbara was attacked by the Man-Bat while investigating a crime scene. She barely escaped, but her arm and leg were fractured, and she had other serious injuries. And Barbara's injuries were what brought Dean and Cassandra together. According to what Cassandra heard from the doctor's instructions to Barbara, her recovery was going well, and she was expected to be discharged from the hospital in a week. This meant that Batgirl was coming back. At that time, the Gotham Bat trio would be reunited: Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. Dean wasn't sure how the Bat family saw him, but after what he did to Robin and Batgirl and his trick with the Bat signal in front of thousands of people, he probably didn't have a good impression. Even if the Bat family didn't think Phantom Thief was a very dangerous villain, Dean's taunts probably got their attention. Dean had to consider the possibility of Batman, Robin, and Batgirl all coming after him. It was not possible that they would work together to catch Phantom Thief, but he could not afford to be unprepared for this either. It was always better to be safe than sorry. He could hope that such a situation wouldn't happen, but he couldn't afford to not be prepared for it. In short, Cassandra told Dean many things and asked him many questions. Dean didn't expect Cassandra to give him much important information because most of what they talked about was just small talk. She was a mute girl, so what could she possibly know? At this moment, as he watched Cassandra leave, Dean closed the door with a deep gaze. Returning to the living room, Dean approached the couch where Cassandra had been sitting just moments ago and he picked up a strand of hair from it. Evening in Gotham, at the Iceberg Lounge. So, your investigation shows that Matches Malone hasn't made any suspicious moves these past few days? He hasn't been anywhere or seen anyone. Penguin sat at the table and asked without showing any emotion. Ignatius respectfully nodded and replied, "Yes, boss. I used all the resources and connections I had. In fact, Matches isn't doing anything strange these days. At least Matches and the Matches gang strictly followed the gambling agreement. They didn't try to manipulate the game." Hearing this, Penguin fell into contemplation. So that means Matches indeed predicted that Phantom Thief would win and Batman wouldn't intervene. It's still hard for him to believe this is true. What reason did Match Malone have to be so sure of this? Does he have sources of information that the Penguin doesn't know about? Or does he have no reason at all, and it was just luck? Penguin knows that Matches is a strong leader who knows himself well. Under his leadership, the Matches gang never took over unnecessary territory or fought with other gangs. It doesn't seem like the behavior of a compulsive gambler. Or is it that Matches' original intention was to give money to the Penguin, but he didn't expect the Phantom Thief to change the entire game? The Penguin couldn't figure it out. Ring ring. Ring ring. Just then, the dedicated phone on the Penguin's table started ringing. He picked it up and frowned. The screen showed an unknown number in a format that seemed to be from an old public telephone. The Penguin gestured to Ignatius, who understood immediately and exited the room to wait outside. Later, Penguin answered the phone. "Mr. Cobblepot, why did it take you so long to answer?" A familiar voice came through the phone. "Matches Malone." Penguin immediately recognized the caller from the voice. "What do you mean by this?" Penguin asked calmly. "Oh, nothing. I just got a bit paranoid and didn't want to use my own phone." Matches answered, but there was no sign of fear in his tone. "Do you think I won't pay up?" Penguin's voice rose sharply. "You did win the bet, and I'll transfer $30 million to your account immediately. I wouldn't want people to think Oswald Cobblepot can't afford it." Wait, calm down. I never thought like that, Mr. Cobblepot." Matches quickly softened his tone. "How could I even think you were lying? Who in Gotham doesn't know that Mr. Cobblepot is the most trustworthy person? It's just that recently, it seems like someone has been investigating me in secret, and I'm worried it might be GCPD. That's made me more cautious, he explained. Also, considering the recent investigation, Mr. Cobblepot, I won't be using my original account for now. Please transfer the $30 million to this XXXX account instead. Penguin's eyes glinted, and he thought to himself, what on earth did Ignatius do? He was discovered while investigating. Penguin couldn't believe Match's worries about the GCPD. He probably just didn't want to expose that layer of window paper. But this also proves one thing, that Matches really didn't meddle outside the scene, or else he wouldn't dare to contact the Penguin directly. Not to mention wanting to transfer the money to a new account. I've noted it down, the money will be in the account tonight. The Penguin promised calmly. Despite how he looked, the Penguin was as smart as anyone else. After hearing the account number once, he didn't need to ask again or write it down. In that case, I'll wait for your good news, Mr. Cobblepot. At the same time, Dean hung up the phone in a secluded corner of Gotham while disguising himself as Matches Malone. When he made a bet with the Penguin, he used Match's identity. Now that he has won the bet, he can't allow Penguin to send the money to the real Matches Malone. Of course, it wasn't sure if the Penguin even wanted to pay. But that doesn't matter. Dean didn't need to get $30 million. Instead, he needed to make the Penguin lose $30 million and possibly start a conflict with Matches Malone. The account he provided to the Penguin was registered under a fake identity. It would be hard to trace him as long as he didn't withdraw money from the account. But if there were any cash transactions, even if it was just a cent, it was very likely to be discovered. On the other side, at the Iceberg Lounge. Shortly after the Penguin hung up the phone, a noise reached his ears. Chapter 167, Short Visit. The man who loves the journey will walk further than the man who loves the destination. Unknown. What's going on? The Penguin furrowed his brow and shouted towards the door, Ignatius, go and see what's going on outside. Yes, boss. Ignatius at the door immediately responded. Bang. But in the next second, the door to Penguin's office was suddenly kicked open with a loud noise. Not to exaggerate, but it was actually kicked open. The door, which the Penguin had paid a lot of money to have made by famous artists out of priceless wood and looked very nice, was currently being violently destroyed by someone and was flying at an incredible speed straight towards the opposite wall. It was instantly smashed to pieces. Okay, that might be an exaggeration. In fact, it didn't quite turn into pieces, but it did take a lot of damage. Ugh. Boss. A weak groan sounded from the wooden door. When the Penguin got closer, he saw that Ignatius was lying on the ground, his head covered in blood. He had broken bones all over his body, and he was barely alive. It's not hard to imagine that when the door was kicked open, Ignatius was at the door and was sent flying into the room along with the door. The sudden turn of events made the Penguin's face darken, and the rage in his eyes seemed about to erupt. Who dares to do such a thing? Don't they know that even when you hit a dog, you should look at its owner? They are completely ignoring me, the Penguin. Oh, shit. Just as the Penguin grabbed the umbrella hanging by the table and turned to look towards the door, his eyes suddenly shrank, and a lot of his anger vanished. He didn't mean to, but his hand slipped, and the high-tech umbrella fell to the ground. The Penguin's face started to get wet with a cold sweat. The Penguin had to look up to make eye contact with a tall person who walked into the room. Batman. Penguin spoke with an ugly expression. A few days ago, Matches Malone had a gambling match with you at the Iceberg Casino. Am I right? Batman's voice was cold and emotionless. Yes, that's right. So what? I haven't heard of any laws prohibiting such gambling establishments. The Penguin tried to look calm and smiled as he answered. We've also been able to keep all the gangs in Gotham in line for a few days because of it. You should thank me for keeping the peace in Gotham instead of breaking into my club, hurting my subordinates, and breaking a door. The Penguin added. Batman wasn't interested in the Penguin's words and had no desire to argue. He walked up to the Penguin and looked down at him in an intimidating way. The Penguin had no choice but to feel intimidated. Where's Matches? Batman asked. What? The Penguin was momentarily stunned. If you're looking for him, you should go to the territory of the Matches gang. Why come to my Iceberg Lounge? Wait a minute. In an instant, the Penguin remembered the content of the phone call just now. Matches said that he had found out he was being investigated and thought it was the GCPD. At the time, the Penguin even thought that sending Ignatius to investigate him had exposed this information. But now, Batman suddenly came asking the Penguin for information about Matches Malone, which caused his mind to race. Could it be that Matches didn't find out it was Ignatius, but that it was actually Batman? I told you, where is Matches Malone? Seeing that the Penguin was hesitating to respond, Batman lowered his voice and repeated what he said. I don't know. The Penguin quickly spoke up. You lost a high-stakes bet with Matches that cost you $3 million. But now you refuse to pay, and you've had people investigate Matches' actions, and now you're telling me you don't know where he is. Batman's voice was cold as he asked. I really don't know where he is, I swear on my mother's grave. When Batman asked the Penguin a question, he swore immediately and told him what Matches had just said on the phone. During this process, the Penguin spilled every piece of information he had about Matches, including the newly opened account. It wasn't only because he feared Batman well, he did have some fear towards Batman. Batman had extracted information from him numerous times in the past. But that wasn't the only reason the Penguin so willingly cooperated. He was still frustrated with Match Malone, which was completely normal. Whoever lost $30 million would also be upset. The Penguin couldn't immediately seek retribution for his loss in a fair and public gambling event because of his identity and reputation. But having Batman go after Malone was a different story. I've checked and found out that when Match Malone talked to me on the phone, he used a public phone located in the remotest part of Gotham City. If he wants to hide for a while, he is probably not in Gotham anymore. The Penguin explained. After listening to Penguin, Batman asked, did you transfer the money to his new account yet? Penguin shook his head and said that Batman came in too quickly before he could set up anything. You don't need to transfer the money. Batman said it firmly. I'll help you transfer $30 million to Match's account. What? The Penguin couldn't believe his ears. What did Batman just say? He wanted to help him pay Match Malone. He must be joking. I'm not doing this for free. I'll send $30 million to Gotham General Hospital's account to pay for the poor people's medical bills. The donation process must be completely anonymous. Batman explained. What? Are you joking with me? The Penguin couldn't believe it. Does Batman want to pay his gambling debt with his own money and donate to the hospital? But remain anonymous? This was insane. Batman looked at the Penguin with a cold, determined look and didn't say a word. The Penguin glimpsed Batman's clenched fist from the corner of his eye. All right, I'll do as you say. The Penguin swallowed the words he was about to blurt out and reluctantly agreed. If Matches calls you again, record all the conversations. I'll come to you. With confirmation, Batman turned and left in a smooth way, slowly disappearing from the Penguin's view. Chapter 168, Unpredictable. The biggest risk is being afraid to take one. Unknown. After Batman walked away, Penguin breathed a sigh of relief before realizing that his back was already wet with sweat. Damn Batman, he really thinks he's above everyone else. He calls us villains? Clearly, he's the biggest villain in this city. Penguin couldn't help but feel angry and ashamed when he thought about how embarrassing he had been just now. He looked at Ignatius, who had already passed out on the ground next to him, with a mix of pity and relief in his eyes. He felt pity for Ignatius because he knew what it was like to be kicked by Batman, and even if he didn't, he could imagine it from how that door looked. As for the relief, it was because Ignatius had passed out and hadn't seen how Penguin was always answering Batman's questions obediently. After all, if his subordinates were to see him in that state, it would have been rather embarrassing. But don't assume that Oswald Cobblepot was too nice to his subordinates. It's purely because he has seen too many people. If Penguin were to kill all the witnesses, he wouldn't have many people left under him. This wasn't the first time Batman had forced his way into the Iceberg Lounge, and it wouldn't be the last. In the beginning, Batman surprised him by showing up at his parties, beating him in front of his guests and henchmen, and then asking for information. At first, Penguin had thought about fighting back, surrounding himself with bodyguards all the time, and staying alert in case Batman showed up unexpectedly. However, the results were utterly useless. Penguin learned his lesson as time went by, and he got wiser. He stopped fighting and even helped by telling Batman whatever he wanted to hear. Of course, there was a line he wouldn't cross, mainly when it came to revealing his own criminal activities. In some special situations, Batman would even ask Penguin for help in investigating cases, and Penguin would follow without hesitation. So, Almost everyone in Penguin's gang knew about these things, but there were very few who would look down on Penguin because of them. In Gotham City, with hundreds of gangs and tens of thousands of members in the underworld, who would dare to say that they weren't afraid of Batman? Whoever did it was either a supervillain with a lot of courage or a very smart person. In short, Penguin knew that being afraid of Batman was not a shameful thing, but it wasn't easy to overcome that trauma. It was hard to accept that the kingpin of Gotham's criminal underworld would do whatever Batman told him to do. At this moment, the Penguin picked up the phone on his office desk and contacted one of his subordinates. "Send a few people to my office, Ignatius got seriously injured, and take him to the hospital." It didn't take long for a few of his subordinates to arrive with a stretcher and carry Ignatius away. On the other side, Batman went back to the Batcave with a troubled mind after leaving the Iceberg Lounge. "Master Bruce, if you keep looking so gloomy, it will be hard for the women to like you again. If the Wayne family ends with you, I'm not sure how I'd explain it to your ancestors," Alfred remarked as he served tea and food. "In an hour and a half, the Wayne Foundation needs to hold its annual charity gala. I was hoping you could meet a noble, beautiful, gentle, and generous young lady at the gala rather than some female thief or a heiress from an assassin organization." "I'm not in the mood for jokes right now, Alfred. I feel like the situation is getting out of my control," Batman answered while taking off his mask and suit to reveal a muscular body, then changing into Bruce's usual clothes. "Are you talking about the charity gala? I know you hate those events, but it's been a tradition since your mother founded the Wayne Foundation." "No, I'm talking about the Phantom Thief." Bruce shook his head. "If I recall correctly, the last time you mentioned the Phantom Thief, your assessment of him was a boring thief who only knows performance art. Now, it seems your opinion of him has changed?" Alfred asked curiously. "The Phantom Thief not only found out mine and Dick's identities, but he also knows about Matches Malone." Bruce's eyes narrowed. "Are you serious?" Hearing Matches Malone, Alfred's expression changed instantly. He was one of the people Bruce trusted the most, so how could he not understand the importance of Matches Malone? A few days ago, the Phantom Thief disguised himself as Match Malone and gambled with Oswald at the Iceberg Lounge. "I haven't done anything like that, and my investigation shows that the real Matches Malone hasn't returned to Gotham." Bruce spoke in a serious tone. In the eyes of others, Matches was in charge of the Matches Gang, which was a new, medium-sized group that primarily involved arson. But in reality, Matches Malone's true identity was Bruce Wayne. That's one of Bruce's deepest secrets, and only the people he trusts the most know it. Even the Justice League doesn't know this secret, although they don't need to know. Matches Malone's identity is quite unique. He is a real criminal who partnered with his brother to commit arson in Gotham. The loss of his brother in an accident many years ago had a significant impact on Matches Malone. This made him think about disappearing from the criminal world. So, Matches Malone left Gotham and hasn't been back for a long time. He still has no plans to go back to Gotham. At the time, Batman was fighting different groups of criminals in Gotham, which made it hard to solve many cases. The amount of information obtained was limited, and the level of efficiency was not enough even with brutal interrogation. He desperately needed a stable and fast way to get information without attracting attention. Matches Malone's disappearance gave him a good identity. Indeed, Bruce adopted Matches Malone as his criminal alter ego. He was able to identify the majority of the Gotham crime family's confidential information by using this persona. Matches Malone is a real person, and he's still alive. However, the Matches controlling Gotham's criminal world isn't the real Matches, and the one who gambles with the Penguin isn't the real Matches either. Bruce kept a close eye on the real Matches and ensured he wouldn't return to Gotham. He knows everything about his movements. The Phantom Thief must have some kind of supernatural power. He craves the applause and amazement of the audience. He stole a sample of Man-Bat serum, and he knows our identities. He even disguised himself as Matches Malone to gamble against the Penguin. Bruce frowned. "Alfred, I don't know what the Phantom Thief's true intentions are, and I don't understand the intentions behind his actions. He is beyond my control. I can't understand him." Chapter 169, Potential Threat. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. James Keller. Perhaps the Phantom Thief doesn't have any particular motive, and maybe he's just doing it for fun, to satisfy his own desire for performance or some artistic concept. Alfred said this to Bruce, whose brow was furrowed. At least the Phantom Thief hasn't caused much panic or economic loss to Gotham. Why do we have to try to understand his motives? He's a criminal, Alfred, and crime is never about having fun. If we don't know what he truly wants, we'll never guess what his next move might be. Bruce countered. Phantom Thief may be stealing treasures now just for the thrill without harming anyone, but what if he gets bored one day? Can his long history of breaking the law lead him back to the right path? Impossible. He might even find killing people amusing. Well, Master Bruce, I can't deny the possibility of what you are saying becoming true one day, but I think you may be exaggerating a bit. Alfred sighed when he saw Bruce doing something he used to do. I believe Master Richard shares the same opinions as me. And this is precisely why he hasn't been able to deal with the Phantom Thief properly. Bruce shook his head and stayed firm in his opinion. Dick always assumes that the Phantom Thief is a good criminal as he doesn't show enough caution or hostility. This makes it difficult for him to make the right decision, and it's not just him, almost everyone in Gotham thinks the same. Yes, based on all the criminal records of the Phantom Thief so far, he is not really a ruthless criminal. You can even say he is not a bad person in a city like Gotham, and I don't deny that. But who can guarantee that this isn't his way of building a good reputation? First establishes a positive image and then suddenly changes his path to slaughter. There have been similar criminals in the past, and others have even tricked me. Who can guarantee that the Phantom Thief is not another one? Bruce has a habit of imagining things from the worst possible angle. Alfred didn't know what to say. At this point, Bruce continued. Alfred, my decision to challenge the Phantom Thief at the Gotham City Stadium is basically a test. It is a test to measure the Phantom Thief's abilities and the public's attitude towards him in Gotham. The first tests were tricky, as there are too many mysteries and conflicts in the Phantom Thief's abilities. However, the results of the second test were obvious. Bruce's expression became serious. I never imagined that the Phantom Thief could be so popular in this city. Alfred, people are happy to see him. He is different from other supervillains, and people are drawn to him. Do you realize how scary this is? Honestly, Alfred hadn't given this much thought until today, but when Bruce brought it up, he felt a chill go down his spine. Now, what worries me the most isn't the ignorant teenagers imitating the Phantom Thief all over the streets, but rather the fact that each of his crime scenes is filled with numerous civilians. As I said, if one day he's no longer satisfied with just stealing and starts showing interest in taking lives, it would be like countless people walking up to him and asking to be killed. Looking at it this way, the Phantom Thief's potential threat was huge. Alfred couldn't help but take a deep breath. Whichever way the Phantom Thief ended up, it was bound to draw crowds, even if he didn't kill anyone himself. What if someone decides to take advantage of that? For example, some lunatic wearing a mask over his head planned to release tear gas at the Phantom Thief's crime scene. That would be nearly impossible to prevent. The Phantom Thief has Dr. Langstrom's man-bat serum. I don't know what he plans to do with it, but if he plans to mass-produce and spread it throughout the city, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bruce's expression remained serious. He even worried that the Phantom Thief might target the more than 30,000 citizens at Gotham City Stadium that day. That's why the Batwing didn't carry any weapons that day, and all the ammunition was replaced with the antidote to the man-bat serum. After all, Bruce was the one who cured himself using the man-bat serum, so he could certainly mass-produce the antidote. Fortunately, the Phantom Thief hadn't done anything like that yet, or at least he hadn't shown any intentions of doing so. In a dark way, it's possible that he hasn't been able to successfully replicate the man-bat serum yet. In short, Bruce's view of the Phantom Thief greatly changed after what happened at Gotham City Stadium. From being dismissive, he turned into a ticking time bomb who was a little too obsessed. So, how do you plan to track down the Phantom Thief? We still know nothing about him. Alfred suddenly asked. Bruce fell into silence. Soon, the silence was broken as a voice came from behind them. What are you guys doing? We don't have much time to waste here. The charity gala is about to start. Dick, who was wearing a suit and had no idea what they had been talking about, walked up to them. Get the car ready, Alfred. Bruce turned to him and instructed him. Of course, Master Bruce. Gotham City, East End. It was a quiet night. Francine Langstrom returned home. Dr. Kirk Langstrom, her husband, was sent to Arkham Asylum not too long ago. Kirk had spent all of their savings on researching the man-bat serum and built up a huge amount of debt, which Francine now had to pay off. Luckily, Francine was not an ordinary housewife. She was a famous researcher with a degree from a prestigious university, and her accomplishments were not far behind her husband's, but Kirk's reckless actions had cost them both their jobs. After Kirk's court ruling, Francine received a job offer from Wayne Enterprises and became a researcher under Wayne Enterprises. She worked late into the night every day, and her life slowly started to get back on track. She still lived in the East End, but she had moved to a new place. Their previous address had been made public due to the Man-Bat incident. However, Francine's personal information remained protected, and only Kirk's information was made public. Francine worked late today, as usual. It was dangerous, especially for a single woman in the East End, but she didn't have many other options. Francine had lived in the East End of Gotham for a few years and knew where it was safer. So far, she hasn't encountered any danger. Well, not until now. Francine used her key to open the door and stepped inside. She froze in her tracks. Two unfamiliar men were waiting inside. "Hello, Mrs. Langstrom. Our boss would like to meet you." Chapter 170, Roman Sienese. Some people talk to you in their free time, and others free their time to talk to you. Unknown. Who are you? Why are you in my house? For a short moment, Francine almost instinctively asked this question. But she stopped herself because she knew that asking would be meaningless and make her sound silly. There was an unwritten rule in Gotham's East End. If anyone comes home and finds strangers waiting for them in your house, never ask, never think, just turn around and run as fast as they can, and pray that the person behind them isn't good with a gun. Francine had lived in the East End for so long that she was well aware of this unspoken rule. In fact, that's exactly what she did. Francine quickly slammed the door shut with a loud bang as soon as she saw two strangers in her house. She then turned and ran away. Just as Francine turned around, another man walked in front of her and blocked her way. "I have to say, your reaction is quite fast, Mrs. Langstrom. You truly deserve to be a woman who can survive alone in the East End." The man praised her. Before Francine could react, the man quickly placed his hand on her neck. She felt a sharp pain all over her body, and then she couldn't stop falling asleep. You. In just a few seconds, Francine collapsed to the ground. Her last thought before losing consciousness was, "They know who I am, why? My identity hasn't been revealed." At this moment, the two men in the room also appeared. "This woman is quite agile, she almost got away. The boss is waiting to see her. Let's not waste any more time. Let's tie her up and take her to him." The three men tied Francine up, taped her mouth shut, and quickly put her on a bread truck that they had hidden nearby and prepped in advance. Their actions were very skilled, and they moved quickly, so it was clear that they had done this before. With the exhaust fumes of a car fading away, the bread truck quickly left Gotham's East End. After a while, the bread truck stopped in front of a warehouse at an unknown location. The three kidnappers carefully checked for any ambushes before safely unloading Francine from the truck and taking her into the warehouse. After an unknown amount of time, Francine woke up in a pitch-black room. The room had no lights, not even windows, or they might have been blocked. It was completely dark in this room, she couldn't see anything and couldn't even see her own hand. But her eyes didn't feel covered, so she wasn't blindfolded. "I've been kidnapped. The people who kidnapped me know my identity, and they are organized and planned. Their boss wants to see me." That's the only information Francine can be sure of at the moment. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Suddenly, a slow but heavy footstep could be heard approaching her in the room. Francine was very scared because she didn't know what the person who took her wanted or what would happen next. "Hello, Mrs. Langstrom. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time." A voice entered Francine's ears, a strange voice that didn't sound like a normal human voice but rather like some kind of electronic synthesized sound. "I must say, the GCPD has done a good job protecting your information. It took me a whole month to find your current address. Who are you? What do you want from kidnapping me? I don't have any money for ransom." Francine forced herself to stay calm and asked. "Well, you're in a hurry, and I don't like wasting time either, so let's get straight to the point." The electronic synthesized voice cut to the chase. "I want the Man-Bat serum." Hearing the kidnapper's purpose, Francine said coldly, "You've got it all wrong. I don't have the Man-Bat serum, or any related research data. If you want the serum, you should go to the GCPD evidence room." "Hehe, I admire your composure, Mrs. Langstrom, but I never intended to get the answers from you." Hearing this, Francine's pupils instantly shrank. What do you mean? It doesn't mean anything. It just means that I'll need you to stay here for a while, until I get the formula for the Man-Bat serum. Meanwhile, at the Wayne Foundation charity gala, Bruce and Dick met a few wealthy people from Gotham who came to the banquet. They both wore expensive formal clothes. Bruce Wayne was quite popular in Gotham, even more than the current popularity of the Phantom Thief. However, their popularity belonged to different categories. A group of socialite beauties surrounded Bruce, and the ladies frequently laughed at his humor and wit. As for Dick, he wasn't very good at dealing with scenes like this. Although he grew up in Wayne Manor and received training in aristocratic etiquette from Alfred, Dick was always the circus boy at heart. He didn't like all the rules and formalities of high society. What he hated even more was pretending to smile and interacting with those so-called rich people. But it was something he had to do, so Dick reluctantly followed Bruce's lead and surrounded himself with a group of young heiresses. "Hey, girls, do you like magic? I happen to know a few tricks," Dick said with a smile while summoning a playing card out of thin air. Magic was a great way for young people of all places and social levels to impress others. Especially if a master magician taught him how to do magic, it would be even more impressive. So it was not surprising that Dick won over the girls. Bruce was talking to the women, but he was secretly watching how the powerful people in the room acted. He considered whether they could become potential allies by observing their facial expressions, words, and actions. Or if they might become the next target of the Caped Crusader. Suddenly, Bruce's attention was drawn to a man with a grim expression. He had blonde hair and was around the same age as Bruce. He seemed out of place in the venue, with no one around him. The reason Bruce noticed him wasn't just because he stood out among the crowd, it was because he recognized him. Roman Siones. Roman Siones, who is now the head of the Siones family, lost both of his parents, just like Bruce. The difference was that Bruce's parents had died quite young, while Roman's parents had died in a fire just a year ago. Chapter 171, Origins. Being with someone won't make you happy if you aren't happy with yourself. Unknown. Besides the famous Wayne family, there were many other wealthy families in Gotham City that were barely visible. Their wealth might not be as high as the Waynes, but they had a lot of power and assets that weren't totally worthless. One of these families is the Siones family, which controls Gotham's largest cosmetics industry. Their subsidiary, Janus Cosmetics, has a significant amount of control over the cosmetics market in Gotham and even the whole state. Unfortunately, their son Roman took over after the former head, Charles Siones, and his wife died in a fire. Since their son Roman took over, the company's market share has dropped a lot because of his bad business ideas, and they've been losing money all year. In fact, compared to other families in Gotham, the rise of the Wayne family was relatively late. The Wayne family had been around for a long time, their ancestors can be traced back to England in the Middle Ages. They came to Gotham during the American Revolutionary War, when a man named Darius Wayne laid the foundation for Wayne Manor. Back then, the Wayne family could only be considered a relatively wealthy minor power. It really started to do well for them in 1881, when Bruce's great-grandfather Alan Wayne took over almost half of Gotham's construction business by himself and grabbed the chance to buy large plots of land. It could be said that the current Wayne family's dominance in Gotham was built upon the foundation laid by Alan Wayne. Without him, there would be no Wayne Enterprises today. However, it can't be denied that Gotham City had been around for almost 100 years and had a lot of wealthy people before Alan Wayne took the Wayne family to great heights. The Cobblepot family, which the Penguin represents, was once the most powerful political family in Gotham. When Alan Wayne was building Gotham's new town, the mayor was a Cobblepot. By the time the Penguin was born, the Cobblepot family had lost a lot of money and was in a very bad financial situation. The Penguin had to pretty much start over because of this. The Siones and Wayne families were both at the pinnacle of Gotham's aristocracy, and their children naturally attended the same elite private school. That's right, Roman Siones and Bruce Wayne were classmates from elementary school to high school, and they could even be considered friends. However, they didn't talk much after Bruce left for exile to travel the world after college. When Bruce saw Roman at a charity banquet for the first time, he immediately recognized his old classmate. "I'm sorry, ladies, but I need to excuse myself for a moment," Bruce said apologetically to the beautiful women around him. Afterwards, he walked straight over to Roman. "Roman, it's been a while," Bruce said. Roman looked up and replied expressionlessly, "Bruce. The cold response didn't bother Bruce, and he asked with concern, I heard that Janus Cosmetics is having some problems lately. If you need financial assistance, Wayne Enterprises can help. Hearing these words, Roman's face grew even colder, and he even changed the way he addressed Bruce. My company is doing just fine, Mr. Wayne. There's no need for you to meddle in my affairs. Is that so? I'm glad to hear your company is thriving, old friend. However, in this case, Bruce's eyes showed an unusual glint. There's a rumor going around that Janus Cosmetics recently received a large amount of unaccounted for funds, estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars. What are you implying, Bruce? Roman's anger began to appear as he asked Bruce. I'm not accusing the Siamese family of covering illegal money. I only heard this rumor. There's no need to get so defensive, Roman. I don't believe this baseless accusation. Bruce waved his arms to try to calm things down. Humph. You're just as self-righteous as ever, Bruce. Don't show fake concern anymore. I don't need any kind of help from you. I'm glad you were born into the Wayne family. Roman was very clear in his rejection of Bruce's help and showed him no mercy. Janus is my company, not yours. Just wait and see, I'll make Janus shine again. I've had enough of this boring and hypocritical gala. With those words, Roman violently stormed out of the event and turned around to leave. Who is that guy? He's like a lunatic, and he does not have any manners. Does someone like him even deserve to attend the Wayne Foundation's charity gala? Roman's shouting startled the nearby guests, who grumbled in annoyance. Looking at Roman as he slammed the door, the smile on Bruce's face gradually faded. So, the tens of millions in illicit funds that Penguin washed through the pink fantasy scam were his doing. At this moment, Dick came to Bruce's side and whispered in a voice only they could hear. In the past 3 months, the only company with a huge amount of funds from an unknown source is Janus Cosmetics, and the amount matches perfectly. I thought Cobblepot's operation failed. His operation did fail, but Cobblepot still wired the money to Roman. He took the loss for his own empire. That's Cobblepot's way of managing his criminal empire. So, the Penguin is still a good businessman. Dick shrugged. Bruce didn't say anything, but his eyes continued to look off into the distance, and he was pondering. Gotham General Hospital, DNA Lab. Director, the test results you requested are out. A lab staff handed a report and a sample to the old man in a white coat in front of him. The report looked like a regular DNA analysis report, but the DNA sample was different from the usual blood samples. It was a strand of hair sealed in a test tube. Can you find any information about the owner of this DNA? Like birth records or hospital records? The director asked. This strand of hair was secretly given to me by Commissioner Gordon of the GCPD for testing. It is said to be related to a fugitive murderer. Sorry, Director, but I couldn't find any similar DNA in the hospital's database. Maybe you could try other hospitals. The lab staff shook his head. I see, I understand. The director nodded and asked again, Commissioner Gordon warned me that this matter must be kept strictly confidential. Besides you and me, does anyone else know about this? Don't worry, Director. I'm the only one on a night shift in the lab today. The staff patted his chest. Well, make sure you have deleted all the test data for this DNA from the computer. The report you have in your hands is the only one, all the others have been erased. All right, just don't tell anyone else. When you see me, act like you don't know about it. The director solemnly warned. I understand, Director. Seeing the seriousness in the director's behavior, the staff became equally solemn. Chapter 172, New Candidate. Do what you need to do and enjoy life as it happens. John Scalzi. After a while, the old director, wearing a white coat, walked out of the back door of Gotham General Hospital. He looked around aimlessly and then headed into an alley behind the hospital. As he walked, he glanced at the DNA analysis report in his hand. Cassandra's DNA is no different from that of a normal human. Why does she have such strong fighting abilities? Well, anything is possible in this world. In his thoughts, the director, or rather, Dean, continued, with this, I should be able to find her parents and discover her past. A few days ago, Cassandra came to Dean's house and asked if he was the phantom thief. This really surprised Dean. He didn't expect the first person to truly see through him would be not Batman or Robin, but a martial artist girl he had only met twice. He was lucky that he had not been exposed. He didn't really think of himself as the phantom thief. This was a deeply rooted idea, not just a lie to himself. So, he had taken advantage of Cassandra's pseudo-mind-reading ability. This encounter allowed Dean to learn about Cassandra's immense potential. Despite being a minor, she had the potential to become the world's strongest fighter. In the DC universe, the title of the world's greatest fighter was no small feat. Do you think Batman was good at fighting? Imagine being able to master all forms of combat and having the best physical abilities, the most combat experience, and exceptionally high combat intelligence. Taking all of these into account, the highest Batman could possibly be was in the top 5, with a big gap between him and the best. Batman is too old to make big improvements in his fighting skills right now, even if he is very talented. He probably won't be able to beat Richard Dragon at this. This world is very famous for Richard Dragon, but his name may not be known to a lot of people. He was like a mentor who taught heroes better ways to do things. He was one of Batman's many masters. He was the best at martial arts and a master of human peak combat techniques. Dean had heard plenty of legends about him. He was one of Batman's many mentors and had trained many superheroes. He was praised as the greatest martial arts master and the best fighter ever. Dean often wonders if martial artists in this world can cultivate inner strength or something similar. Otherwise, it's hard to explain why so many heroes with superpowers seek out Richard Dragon as their mentor. What they do know is that the world's top martial artists generally have the ability to read their opponent's movements through body language. It's like a standard skill, but the difference lies in the accuracy and range of their predictions. Oh, except for Batman. Among top martial artists, he's the only one who doesn't have this ability. He predicts others' actions purely through mental simulations instead of reading body language. It's two different methods and techniques. However, even though Richard Dragon is famous worldwide, he's still not the world's strongest. For example, mercenaries like Bronze Tiger, a famous supervillain, are just as strong as Richard Dragon. Richard Dragon himself has admitted to being defeated by someone who is the real #1 martial artist in the world. He didn't reveal the identity of this person, perhaps he mentioned it, but it wasn't made public. In any case, there is someone out there whom Richard Dragon respects and acknowledges as stronger. At this moment, Dean learned of Cassandra's terrifying potential and the various thoughts in his mind. Extraordinary martial skills, the weird gift of reading the mind through body language, and a pure heart that hasn't been influenced by Batman. What does this mean? It means that Cassandra has an incredibly rare talent. If she is given a suit with enough defense, she could easily defeat Batman. Dean has considered many things. It's tough to survive alone in this DC world, and many of his ideas can't be accomplished on his own. If he wants to buy a simulation robot with human-level intelligence or a technique that creates clones, the costs are too high. Dean simply can't afford it. Just imagine that even Batman has Robin and Batgirl as his assistants. The Justice League is like his team on a bigger level. Konosuke and Suguru Hakuba help Kaito Kid in the original story. The White Horse sometimes gives information to Kaito Kid himself. Why can't Dean have assistants like everyone else? Dean almost felt like he was a demon lord about to be defeated by a hero after Robin mocked him for not having partners while he had. However, Dean was very cautious in selecting this potential partner. First, the person must really be able to help him. It would be even better if they could make up for his flaws. A person with Konosuke's limited skills wouldn't be very useful, especially in such a strange world. Second, it goes without saying that the person must be trustworthy. Dean had been looking for a future partner for a while but hadn't found the right person yet. Those who were trustworthy lacked the necessary abilities, and those with the abilities couldn't be trusted. Until Cassandra showed up and gave Dean a great candidate. We don't need to talk about her abilities, but what's most important is that she is very innocent. Not a simple innocence, but a soul that has never been corrupted. Once he establishes a trusting relationship with someone like her, she will be loyal for a lifetime. If he doesn't betray her, she won't betray him. Dean has probably been in Gotham for too long because he wants to properly examine Cassandra, even though he already plans to recruit her as his assistant. It just so happened that Cassandra's hair had fallen onto Dean's sofa, providing a perfect opportunity. So he took it to the hospital for analysis. He wanted to learn more about Cassandra by digging into her past and finding out who her parents were and what kind of life she may have had. On the other hand, he wanted to find the source of Cassandra's emotional burden and try to resolve it, which would help Dean and her become closer. The Gotham General Hospital doesn't have any records of Cassandra's birth or DNA files. The chances of finding them in other hospitals are probably slim. It seems that she wasn't born in Gotham but came from a distant city. Dean confirmed it in his mind. Cassandra's father or mother is likely to be a criminal, perhaps even a supervillain? Maybe I should look through the FBI or the Department of Meta-Human Affairs. Or find a way to sneak into the Batcave for the files. In terms of difficulty, the first seems more achievable, doesn't it? Chapter 173, New Agenda. Any place is probably beautiful when you stop running for 1 second. Joe Goldberg, you. If I remember correctly, the FBI has a branch in Gotham and someone in charge of the investigation, but I can't seem to recall who it is. Dean rubbed his chin and pondered. Gotham was pretty strange. The FBI was considered powerful across the United States, but in Gotham, it was practically invisible. The citizens of Gotham might act like they don't respect the GCPD, but the truth is that they are much stronger than the police forces of most cities. In certain situations, they might even be better than military personnel, but only when it comes to weapons. In other cities, the local police assist the FBI in their investigations. However, in Gotham and other cities with superheroes and supervillains, the GCPD always takes the lead. This situation is not unique to Gotham, but it happens in most cities where superheroes and supervillains are common. For example, cities like Metropolis, Star City, Central City, and Coast City are difficult for federal organizations like the FBI to intervene with. In other words, these cities have a lot more freedom. Since there are more and more criminals with superpowers every year, it's getting harder for reputable organizations like the FBI and CIA to deal with them. It was hard for them to deal with criminals with superpowers, even ones who didn't have very strong powers. It took a lot of people and resources to solve the problem. As a result, these spy organizations were slowly being replaced by rising departments dedicated to dealing with superpowers. However, the federal government wasn't stupid. They know that the global situation is changing rapidly. They were very worried about both the Justice League and the growing number of criminals with superpowers living in their country. The Justice League is too powerful and uncontrollable. They have a terrifying social influence and are a more serious threat than nuclear weapons. Therefore, the federal government has established two departments, A.R.G.U.S. and the Department of Meta-Human Affairs, which have similar authority to the original CIA and FBI. One focuses on external threats, while the other focuses on internal ones, but both are limited to supernatural events. Within the normal range of work, it is usually left to the FBI and CIA to handle it. However, that doesn't mean they have no involvement in supernatural events. In many cases, things may appear unrelated to superhumans until a deeper investigation reveals their involvement. After that, the specialized Department of Meta-Human Affairs is called in to assist, and the FBI can only provide support. The advantage of this is that while the FBI itself may not have many means to handle supernatural crimes, they do have many records of supernatural criminals. The only difference is that their information may not be as wide as that of the Department of Meta-Human Affairs. For someone like Dean who wants to uncover Cassandra's past, wouldn't this be the best place to investigate? While the FBI's branch in Gotham may not have much appearance, their defense systems should be good. After all, I've heard of the GCPD being bombed but never of the FBI branch being targeted. Dean thought to himself as he returned to his hideout. Infiltrating the FBI branch will require careful planning. On the other side, Gotham, Janus Cosmetics Company. Roman Siones returned to his company with a rage that seemed to come out of nowhere. The employees were afraid to speak as he walked through the office, as they could see how dark their boss's grim expression was. They quickly lowered their heads to focus on their work. Damn you, Bruce, do you think I can't see through your true intentions? You're just pretending to want to help, but all you want is to buy my company, isn't it? Roman schemed darkly in his mind. Janus Cosmetics had been losing money every month while Roman was in charge. Roman had to use the family's illegal money to pay his expenses by laundering it through the Penguin. It was normal for ancient noble families to have many shady businesses. There was even a lot of illegal money in the Wayne family before Thomas was born. Roman didn't believe there was anything wrong with his way of running the company. In fact, he was convinced that everything was everyone else's fault. It was either his employees were going against his orders behind his back or their competitors were playing dirty tricks. Especially the cosmetics subsidiary of Wayne Enterprises, which grew quickly during Janus's decline and now has a big share of the market. Roman stubbornly believed it was Bruce Wayne's malicious competition. Damn you, Wayne! Damn you, Bruce! Everyone should just die, just like you. Roman howled angrily in his office. As he uttered the last sentence, his gaze unconsciously turned towards the portrait hanging in the corner of the wall. The painting showed an old couple, which were actually Roman's parents. Roman despised his parents deep down because of their endless domestic violence during his childhood and their nauseating vanity. They looked down on the poor and only let Roman associate with people from the upper class, which was normal for the Siamese couple. They even insisted that he deliberately maintained a good relationship with Bruce. This made Roman resent his parents from a young age, and he also disliked Bruce as a result. Later, like a cliché love story, Roman falls in love with an ordinary girl, but his parents are very against it. Roman accepted his parents' arrangement and severed ties with the girl. Then his parents died in a fire. It was after this that Roman, who had gotten Janus Cosmetics, started a big change. Roman added countless strange and terrifying masks to the company's products, and it became very different from the previous image. Why did Roman make these changes? Because he had an unusual fetish for masks. After receiving the inheritance from the Siamese family, he spent a large sum of money to acquire countless masks from around the world. These are all strange and terrifying masks, and Roman sincerely believes that they are the best works of art in the world. How could anyone not appreciate masks? As for the results, well, it was quite clear that consumers weren't buying it, but Roman refused to accept this fact. He invested almost all of the money he obtained from the penguin into the development of a new product. He ignored the negative reputation of Janus Cosmetics among consumers. Roman hoped that this new product would revive the company, and he firmly believed in it. To be honest, this fearlessness and determination were something most people simply didn't possess. Everyone is doubting my decisions. What do they know? Just wait and see, time will prove me right. Roman thought angrily. Bruce, you won't take my company from me. I will make Janus glorious again. Knock, knock. At this moment, the office door suddenly knocked. Come in. Roman growled unhappily. Boss, the head of the research department said there has been significant progress in the experiments for the new product, A&D. And he would like you to visit. A young secretary dressed in tremblingly opened the door and cautiously said. He didn't even dare to go inside, instead, he left the door slightly open and stayed inside, reporting to Roman. Hearing this, Roman's face brightened, and his gloomy expression eased a bit. Great, take me there quickly. Chapter 174, Product. Live so freely that people crave your vibes. Unknown. A while later. Where is your department head? You better tell me there's been progress in the experiments for the new product, or you'll know the consequences of wasting my time. Roman walked in and warned everyone in the department. At that moment, a bald, middle-aged man walked over with a smile on his face. I'm right here, boss. Please rest assured, if it weren't for new breakthroughs in the experiments, I wouldn't dare trouble you personally unless there was a breakthrough in the experiments. Humph, then show me the results quickly. Roman snorted. Please follow me. Roman followed the head of research and development into a closed building that had more than a dozen model heads with thin masks over their faces. This is our latest development, a liquid face mask. It usually stays in a liquid state in the packaging, similar to common moisturizers. But when it is gently applied to the face, the development manager approached an empty model head and took out a tube-like bottle. He squeezed out a slightly thicker liquid than water and applied it to the face of the model head. The warmth of the facial skin will stimulate the special substance in the mask, causing it to solidify and become the facial mask that people are familiar with. After he finished applying the mask to the entire face, a pure white mask formed in just 1 or 2 minutes. When it comes into contact with water, it quickly dissolves and returns to its liquid state. In short, you only need to wash your face to completely remove the mask, and it disappears with the water flow. The development manager picked up a beaker filled with water and poured it gently onto the mask. The solidified mask started to dissolve at a visible speed and flowed along with the water. Boss, this newly developed liquid mask combines convenience and effectiveness. The skincare effect theoretically surpasses more than 99% of the masks currently on the market. I believe consumers will surely welcome this product. The confident development manager smiled. Roman nodded in satisfaction and then asked, has it been tested on volunteers? Yes, we had the first batch of volunteers use it a week ago. So far, everything is normal. No side effects have been found, but we need to observe for a few more months. Before he could finish, Roman interrupted him directly and waved his hand. If no side effects have been found, there's no need for further observation. We'll launch the product next month. What boss is this? The development head's face changed, and he was about to be persuaded when he was scared by a fierce look from Roman. Do you not understand the current situation of the company? Where is the time for us to wait for several months of observation? Roman's question left the development head speechless. The situation at the company is really difficult, and almost every employee is worried that they won't get paid if the company goes bankrupt. But who is to blame for this? It's none other than the smart decision of the boss. The head of the research and development department felt angry but didn't dare speak up and let Roman continue to cause chaos. I don't care about the future of the company anymore, you can do whatever you want. Janus Cosmetics announced to the public that they would be releasing a new product next month and issued an apology for the negative news that had occurred earlier. This was done at Roman's request. Roman believed that in the not-so-distant future, he would lead Janus Cosmetics to once again become the leader in Gotham's beauty industry. A few days later. Janus Cosmetics? New liquid mask. Dean looked at today's newspaper taken from the mailbox and quickly lost interest. Meanwhile, he wasn't just planning how to get into the FBI and steal database information, he hadn't forgotten his usual routine of finding new targets. Just like before, Dean would determine his next move by reading about world-famous gemstone reports in newspapers or the news. However, there have been very few such reports lately, and today, there was a long article about Janus Cosmetics' new product. It seems like there hasn't been anything interesting happening in Gotham recently. Dean shook his head and threw the newspaper on the couch. It's been a while since Janus had a new boss, and their products are getting worse quickly. They have a lot of weird styles that aren't popular with most people. When old Mr. Sienese was in charge, despite that guy being an annoying snob, his management skills were really extraordinary, and the quality of his cosmetics was the best in Gotham. In fact, Dean had a history with Janus Cosmetics. He used to be a consumer of their products and had bought a lot of their cosmetics. Of course, Dean didn't have much need for makeup himself. He bought cosmetics to practice how to disguise himself as a woman. After all, if a woman's makeup had flaws, how could he ever hope to deceive anyone? However, after Roman changed the company's products, Dean never placed another order because of the declining quality and appearance. Dean put the Janus company aside and continued to plan his infiltration into the FBI headquarters. In the DC world, the FBI is not just an ordinary organization, and they surely have some supernatural technology and maybe even a few agents with superpowers. Dean couldn't afford to be careless, otherwise, he might end up in big trouble. If only my hacking skills were good, I could just hack into their database and get any information I need. Unfortunately, this kind of skill usually requires Dean to practice on his own, and he is not very good at it. While his skills with computers are not useless, he is far from the level of professional hackers and can only be compared to amateur hackers at best. Not to mention hacking into the FBI. Maybe I should buy a more advanced artificial intelligence, but I don't have enough points right now. He can afford low-level artificial intelligence, but top hackers could easily track that. There are people like Batman or Cyborg from Teen Titans who definitely have that level of technology. It's rare to find something that can escape Cyborg's detection on the internet. At least it should be able to evade Cyborg's tracking before it's worth buying. It's worth mentioning that a few days ago, after Dean pretended to be a matches and contacted the Penguin, $30 million were deposited into the virtual account he created with a false identity. Dean could withdraw money from this account at any time if he wanted to. But he didn't do that, and he didn't plan to do it in the future. Chapter 175, Black Mask. The prettiest smiles hide the deepest secrets. The prettiest eyes have cried the most tears and the kindest hearts have felt the most pain. Unknown. Late at night, Wayne Manor. The Batcave. When Dick returned from patrol on the Batbike, his suit was torn, which showed that he had been through a tough fight. Getting off the bike, Dick immediately noticed Bruce absorbed in front of the Batcomputer. It's time for a shift change, Bruce. Are you still keeping an eye on Phantom Thief's virtual account? I don't think he's stupid enough to use that money recklessly. Dick removed his mask as he approached Bruce. Bruce didn't say anything and kept his back to the computer screen. Well, I know you wouldn't do that. Dick waved his hand, not being surprised that Bruce didn't answer. He knew that Bruce couldn't spend his entire day monitoring an uncertain virtual account. He was just joking earlier. There were too many things in Gotham that needed Batman's attention. The phantom thief himself barely deserved a few days of Bruce's surveillance, and a mere virtual account certainly didn't deserve his constant attention. Bruce had set up an alert program to monitor the phantom thief's virtual account. If any funds were withdrawn or transferred, the Bat computer would automatically track down the flow of money. Let me see, you're still investigating the mysterious funds related to Janus Cosmetics? We now know that the Penguin is helping Roman Sienese launder his money, right? But Janus Cosmetics' books are clean. Roman's money is not only from a legitimate source, but he has also paid taxes. Bruce replied solemnly. So, the Penguin must have another complete money laundering operation, even deeper than the one at the Ethan Shipping Company. Why am I not surprised? The Penguin always has hidden tricks up his sleeve. Dick stroked his chin in thought. As long as we can trace the real source of funds for Janus Cosmetics, we can uncover another money laundering factory operated by the Penguin. But we don't know if he has any other factories, and they might be even more hidden. So we shouldn't rush to destroy this money laundering factory. We should gather more clues and investigate further before taking action. Bruce explained. Nancy is from Gotham and is an ordinary office worker. Just like most women who want to have good skin, Nancy also pays great attention to her skincare routine. She doesn't necessarily choose the most expensive cosmetics, but they have to be from reputable companies. She believes that only then can she be assured of their quality. Without a doubt, for most of Nancy's life, there was only one famous skincare company in Gotham, the family business of the Sienese family, Janus Cosmetics. A large part of Nancy's skincare routine came from Janus, and the company's products were indeed of high quality, which she greatly appreciated. However, things changed when Janus Corporation started producing strange and weird designs that were different from their usual style. This caused backlash from loyal customers, and Nancy stopped buying Janus Cosmetics for months. Since Janus has built a good image over the years and most of their design problems were with how things looked, the quality hasn't changed much. Right now, Janus Cosmetics is going through a dark time with declining revenue and falling stock prices. However, they have boldly released a new face mask product that seems to have good results, and most importantly, it looks normal. There are volunteers who have personally tested the safety of the product, and there seem to be no issues. So, Nancy decided to trust Janus one last time and bought the liquid face mask at the expensive price, which wasn't cheap. After using it for about half a month, she didn't experience any discomfort, and the mask had good effects, so she felt relieved and continued using it. One day, Nancy applied the liquid face mask before bed as usual. After a while, she started feeling a slight warm sensation on her face, and the temperature kept rising and quickly becoming extremely hot. It felt like she had applied boiling water instead of a face mask. In panic, Nancy ran to the bathroom to use water to remove the mask. However, she made the worst possible choice at that moment. When the tap water touched her face, a sharp pain exploded instantly across her face. She instinctively covered her face with both hands. She slowly opened her hands while shaking and was shocked to see a torn, bloody piece of skin in her palm, and her arm was red from new blood all over. Nancy had a hard time lifting her head and looking in the mirror, as she was in so much pain. A stranger's face appeared before her eyes, a face that had only flesh and no skin. At the same time, similar scenes were happening countless times in Gotham. The liquid face mask had terrible side effects that went from disfiguring to killing everyone who bought and used it. The company that started this mess, Janus Cosmetics, went from being appreciated to being the target of the public in an instant. A lot of people who were hurt sued Janus and Roman Sienese, which made Roman very busy and unable to reply to all the notices in time. Why? How did things turn out like this? Roman slammed the table over and yelled angrily. Your anger won't help the current situation, Mr. Sienese. On the other side of the table, Lucius Fox remained calm. We can help Janus Cosmetic get through this difficult time. Wayne Enterprises will take responsibility for all the lawsuit settlements. However, unfortunately, we will have to restructure the board of directors of Janus Cosmetics, and Mr. Sienese, you. I know I will be kicked off the board. Janus will have nothing to do with me from now on. Roman coldly laughed. There's no other option. If you continue to stay in the company, the negative publicity will never die down, leaving Janus with a dead end. Lucius shook his head helplessly. Roman kept quiet while he signed the paper that transferred his shares and then left the company that he had once considered his own with a cold expression on his face. Wayne Enterprises. Bruce. You've brought me to this situation. Did you really think I would willingly give the company to you? Even at this moment, Roman still denied that the company's failure was his own doing. He believed that everything was Wayne's doing behind the scenes. His arrogance, pride, and stubbornness prevented him from ever doubting himself. Just wait. Wait and see, I'll make all of you pay. Roman's eyes were bloodshot, and he had a weird grin on his face. He walked around like he wasn't aware of anything, like a walking corpse. When Roman finally snapped back to reality, he found himself in the backyard of his mansion. It was the location of the family cemetery. Roman looked at the tombstone with his father's name on it, and his mouth curled into a crazed smile. He took out a shovel and dug up his father's grave as if possessed by madness. Then, Roman removed the coffin lid and used the wood from it to carve a skull-like, pitch-black mask. Ha 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 ha. Roman put on the carved skull mask on his face and burst into maniacal laughter. For some reason, when he put on the mask, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. It was as if the shackles that had been holding him down were suddenly released, and he felt a surge of satisfaction and peace in his soul. In this moment, Roman suddenly felt like he had spent the first half of his life living a lie. The Siamese family, the Janus Cosmetics company, none of it mattered. Only in the moment of wearing the mask did he become his true self, his complete self. Perhaps it was supernatural, but Roman could feel an indescribable, mysterious power flowing from deep within his body. So, it's the mask, only the mask, ha 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 ha. My entire life has been nothing but masks. Ha ha ha. Roman had a realization, and suddenly he stopped laughing. From being completely mad to being completely calm. Roman Siamese is dead. Roman calmly said. Now, I am, the Black Mask.
Thanks for listening.